Here we go.
So it would have
Okay.
looked
Hello and welcome to the Northfield Select Board. It's March 21st and I'm calling this meeting to order at 6:01. And our first scheduled appointment is here. We have a full house of folks. Thanks very much. And we're going to start off with the Open Space Stewardship Award. Matt, you're going to address the Select Board and tell us what this is all about.
Good, yes. For those who don't know me, I'm Matt DeLuzio. I'm a member of the Open Space Committee. I'm here.
Are you the chair now as well?
I'm filling in as the chair for
Thank
Julia. Yeah. And I'm here to present the Stewardship Award. And to me, stewardship is, or land stewardship is caring for the land, appreciating the land, planning, whether it's in your lifetime or countless generations into the future, and whether it's your land or not. And to me, that is super important for connection to the land, community engagement, economically. I know in Northfield, with its small town charm and rich history, they have a deep appreciation for the open spaces that we all share and the trail systems here. And it's my honor to recognize someone, Cooper Bullock, who through his work has done a lot to inspire me personally, someone who went to Pioneer 20 years ago. So Cooper, I'll give a little backstory of Cooper. He went to Costa Rica for the Center for Intercultural Education and Development through Georgetown University. He was tasked with creating his own plan for stewardship for when he got home in his community. And what he did was he organized a Pioneer Land Stewardship Club, which now has 22 members.
Wow.
He created a plan to fix the trail systems around Pioneer. He engaged the community by getting Bernardston-Northfield, Warwick to all donate wood, mulch, and equipment, and organized a work day. He practiced civic engagement by meeting with the Conservation Commission here in town because this part of the trail systems was within 100 feet of a wetland. And he did it. He got everyone together and they spread the mulch around. And I mean, I know the trails were in pretty rough shape 20 years ago when I went there, and so it's pretty amazing. And he even, when he met with the Conservation Commission, talked about invasive species, the vegetation there, improving the footbridge. So through his leadership and community engagement, he earned recognition in terms of getting a newspaper article published about him. He got recognition from State Senator Joe Comerford through a beautiful letter that they wrote for him. And he really inspired me personally in researching this story. I, find a renewed sense of connection to that land that I had, and knowing that future generations are that engaged. I just want to say thank you, Cooper, and congratulations. You are the 2022 Citizen Stewardship Award winner.
That's wonderful. Would you like to say a few words?
Sure, yeah. Last July, I was in Costa Rica and I got to visit with a lot of the local community and engage with the community there and learn about how important the environment is to all the citizens of Costa Rica. And then once I got back, working with my amazing environmental science teacher, Miss Pullen, and Superintendent Kinsella, we made this plan and worked with John Lepore, who was the 2016 winner of this award.
Nice.
So he also wrote this pioneering stewardship plan, which is a comprehensive plan about renewing stewardship at Pioneer. So he's also working for the district now to do some more stewardship at both Pioneer and Northfield Elementary and Bernardston Elementary as well. So all of that combined leadership and help really open my mind to what a small community can really do and achieve.
Wow.
It's an inspiration.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for a lot of challenging things and hoops, and going to Costa Rica after all the floods and damage that's been done to that state. Thank you, Cooper. It's good to see you up here. Proud of you.
And I can say from having sat in on school committee meetings, you do awesome presentations.
Thank you.
So your communication skills are really top notch. And I think that helps in the engagement that's been described about your achievements, is that ability and interest in communicating with folks. Any other comments or questions from the board?
Young gentlemen like yourself are the future of small town America, and we need more of you, and I hope that in the years come that you continue to progress your skills in communication and doing what you're doing. We need it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Matt, do you want to hold up the plaque one more time? So there's quite a few names on there, and this, if I remember correctly, this goes downstairs on the first floor in the entrance way, so everyone can see that. So
That's so great, Cooper.
yeah,
By the way, I miss you.
I love the connection with 2016 and John Lepore. I think that's a nice connection.
Yeah.
And full circle to your experience as a PVRS student too. It's a nice story. Yeah.
And team development.
Yeah.
Surrounding himself with good people.
Yeah.
22 people now.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Huge. That's really.
And we're working on a trout project with the Mass Department of Wildlife at Pioneer. So we've been raising trout, and we're going to be releasing them. So that's a grant that we worked on with Ms. Pullen as well.
Good deal.
Yeah.
Excellent.
When do you release the trout?
Later on in the spring.
Where are you going to do it? Will you be announcing it?
Possibly.
Okay.
Still planning the
Okay.
part of it. Yeah.
Unless it's a secret, of course, for the trout safety. Okay.
Great. Well, thank
Thank you. Matt,
Thank you, Cooper.
and Matt, thanks
Yeah,
for your
thanks,
involvement
Matt.
with open space. I see Robin's here as well. Thanks.
Hi, Robin.
Yeah, thanks for everybody's continued participation in open space. It's really important to Northfield.
Yeah,
Thanks for the
very
opportunity to
Yeah,
speak here.
and congrats,
Thank you.
Cooper. We hope to see more of you. Yay! Woohoo! That's awesome. Okay. Next up is the sewer department. We're going to meet Mark DuPont. See everybody.
Bring chairs up. There's only
Changing
one
of the
chair.
guard.
Bring a chair, Karen. BYOC.
Woohoo!
Isaac, hi.
Hello.
Excuse us.
That's okay.
Sorry. Okay.
Execution chair.
That's it. Now,
Hardly. So Karen, you're going to introduce our latest appointment.
our latest appointment.
Excellent.
Thank you for having us speak.
Thank you for coming.
Sewer Commission, our Chief Superintendent Isaac Golding is with us, and this is Mark DePonte. We refer to him as the Christmas miracle, because over Christmas week we got this amazing resume, and Mark is coming out of retirement. He's working 2 to 3 days a week as needed. He is a 6C license, and he will be helping Isaac with all kinds of things, and we got him in and got him here. So
Was I the only applicant?
no, there were 200 more. Finding people in this
Yes.
field right now
Yes,
is
challenging.
next to impossible.
Yeah.
So we were very glad that he decided to become board and come out of retirement
Great.
and only want to work part-time. And so he saw this advertisement that it was a part-time position, and I don't know, I called you in about an hour and said, what's it gonna take? So we are here. You guys approved him 2 meetings ago, something like that.
Yep.
So Mark is starting tomorrow? I'm looking at Isaac. Soon, this week. And we all wanted to just come in and
Say
make eye
hello.
contact and say hello.
Good.
Great.
Well, welcome to Northfield, Mark. We're happy to have you.
I stopped at Nim's today. Had
Good.
You had a sandwich?
Yeah, it was good.
Good.
A little pricey, but it was good.
Yeah, well, small town prices.
That's what she said.
Mark is commuting in. He was out in Williamstown for a long time, and he is commuting in from the Newfane, Vermont area. So he's used to commuting, and we're used to being flexible. So it's all going to work out.
Great.
Great.
Any questions?
Welcome
Yes.
aboard.
Any questions?
Everybody good?
Yeah.
We are good. We just wanted to meet you and say welcome, that we're happy that you're here in Northfield. We saw your resume, as Karen said, two meetings ago, so we were impressed and went ahead with the appointment.
They promised pastry and coffee, though.
Well, we have those at every sewer commission meeting.
Oh, thanks to Karen, yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Alex, you stepped down. Sorry.
Oh, a day late and a dollar short.
That's
Last time they
right.
They
had
get-
pizza, ice cream, and cookies.
Wow.
So, Mark, were you part of the team that was videotaping the pipes through?
Oh, I wasn't
CCD.
part of the team, but yeah, we hired them.
Right. But you were part of the
Williamstown, yeah,
Yeah.
they are under consent order. Actually, the Hoosick Water Quality District takes care of 3 towns. The
Okay.
Williamstown, North Adams, and part of, I forget the other town.
Right.
Lanesboro? Was it Lanesboro?
No, it wasn't Lanesboro. It was it's right over the border. Anyways, there was a district. So they had one sewer plant for all 3 towns.
Oh, okay.
But we only took care of the sewer plant. The piping was taken care of by each individual town.
All right.
But you know, I worked on pipes before. So.
And I'm asking for a friend.
Ah.
How is our sewer pipe situation in our town of Northfield? Like, how are we looking? Are the pipes really old or?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Well, that's true of many towns. So I
Yes,
think
Most
Mark,
places were built and they had a combined sewer system. I mean, 100 years ago, everything went to the river.
Right.
So everybody's
Yep.
playing catch up now
Yep.
to separate the water from the storm drainage system from the sewer system.
yeah,
Right.
And a lot of places are under the consent order, but I know it's like insane amount of money to separate everything. So the other option is to build plants that are ridiculous capacity. So I know everybody's in the same bind. So it's not
Right.
like I'm coming into this blind.
I see. Great. Well, we appreciate you, commuting to come here tonight so that we can recognize that you're part of the team now, and thanks for being here.
I feel like honored here.
yeah.
Well, you are honored here. This is all the crew that keep this town running. I mean, we love this town, so everybody who helps keep it running is.
By the way, Mary owns the creamy.
Ah.
Sorry, Alex. I didn't tell her.
A couple more months. Well, we like to meet new employees. Generally, when we usually meet them at the time of the appointment. But I think, given the travel logistics, we did the appointment first. So we had a chance to look at your resume and we were really impressed. And we also like to make sure if there's any questions that you have of us or Northfield, that we make sure that they get addressed up front.
I have no questions at
Great.
this time. Doesn't mean
Okay.
I won't come back and ask a question.
Yeah,
Yay.
good. And you're starting, you said he's starting tomorrow?
We don't know. We haven't.
Soon.
Oh,
Soon.
soon, okay.
Probably not tomorrow, but in the near future, within a week.
Okay,
Yeah.
Yeah.
good.
Great.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Well, actually, I think I have to do. It said that I had to do a physical
Physical,
first.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay, so you still got a couple of steps there.
Yep.
Okay,
All right.
Okay, great.
excellent.
Thank you.
you.
Yep,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks, guys. It was nice to see you,
Nice to
Isaac.
see you.
And Karen.
Alrighty.
As always, thanks for that.
Yeah, you might as well.
We've got a few. You guys don't have to move because you are in the front row, so.
Camera ready.
We're just gonna.
Usually stuffed in the back.
Yeah, it's nice to see you.
No one wants to help me.
Some of us already do,
I
unfortunately.
The reputation. We're just gonna chunk through a couple of things here because we're a little ahead of schedule. So if you could just hang out for a few more minutes, we'll take care of the warrants and the minutes, and then do EMS. So we want to have a nice chat with you guys. On the payroll warrant, can I get a motion to approve the?
Motion to approve the March 22nd, 2023 payroll warrant of $73,135.84.
Motion and a
Second.
second from Mary. Thank you. Any questions or comments?
Pretty standard payroll warrant.
Yep.
My analysis of it, normal employment and employer payroll business. Nothing out of the ordinary there.
And still, we're probably catching up from snow removal too.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that's unanimous. And on the vendor warrant, it's a little larger than normal, so we need a motion for that.
I'll make a motion to approve the March 22nd, 2023 vendor warrant of $813,178.47, with the major items including real estate refunds of $13,163, health insurance $15,631, OPEB fiscal year 2022 Article 23, which is $75,000. Old Wendell Road fiscal year 22 Article 15, $14,550, and the big one, the general stabilization transfer of $600,000, and which I'm assuming, Andrea, is for the anticipation of an emergency services building.
What you have to understand is that you voted at town meeting to move that money, and the only way to transfer it from a stabilization account into the expenditure account is to move it through the warrant. That's how the treasurer notifies the accountant. So you're not really spending that money in this particular warrant. You're just literally pulling it out of the stabilization account and moving it into an expenditure account. She has to do that sometime during this fiscal year so that you can ultimately expend those funds as invoices are. Like, same with the other articles that they are on there. That's literally the mechanism to move them from their votes into the proper accounts. The OPEB money, for example, you voted 75,000. Now that you've taken it from there, she will put it into the investment account that we use through the state. So that money isn't necessarily being expended right up front. It's being moved into the accounts. And that's, the warrant is the mechanism to do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
And just to reiterate, these voted on at the town meeting, so this is not the select board making the decision, we're actually executing the decision. Okay. Yeah,
That's
okay.
important. We're executing the decision. We're
Correct.
not spending money. That's right.
In an appropriate accounting manner. Okay, and this is, yeah, motion and a
Second.
second from Mary, thanks. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Review and approval of the minutes from March 7th.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes of March 7th, 2021.
2023.
Yep, 2023.
Oops. Good catch,
I make a
Mary.
motion that we approve the minutes of the meeting from our meeting on March 7th, 2023.
Thank you. Motion and a
Second.
Second from Heath. All those in favor, any discussion, first of all? I always review them when I get them, so I'm fine. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. We had no interim select board meetings. Why don't we go ahead with talking with EMS, and then we'll come back to the meetings and events and the town administrator update.
Good evening.
Hello.
Hello.
Who's introducing whom?
Bernard, Captain, work with EMS. I bring, Phil is the one that's going to be appointed tonight, Phil Wonka. I believe Ryan and Brandon were tentatively appointed sight unseen, so now they're here to be introduced to all of you.
Hello.
Yeah, nice to see you.
Phil is the chief in Irving. Ryan is a captain, and Brandon is an EMT firefighter, and I'm also on Irving as well. So they bring a vast amount of years of experiences. You've worked with us for years too.
Oh, yeah.
So I think they're very good assets and a very good addition to our staff. So
Brilliant.
Well, I'm always really impressed with the working relationship between Irving and Northfield. Really appreciative of it.
as they can vouch for it, it's an amazing working relationship.
Yeah.
It's been wonderful.
Yep.
Considering where we came from.
Yeah.
And necessary. Any questions or comments from the board?
Well, the whole
Mary?
process of blending yourselves together was pretty much seamless.
Very
I'd
much
love
so.
to hear that. That's great.
It's been nothing but positive feedback everywhere around in both areas, especially in our town. It's just at least the half that we cover for Irving. But
That's wonderful. So not another negative hoop you have to jump through. So yeah.
right.
Well, thank you all for your service. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Heath, any?
Yeah, just honored to have you guys here. I know how much
Mhm.
experience you guys have, and it adds to our town's benefit and the towns that we serve with this EMS effort. So I know having you guys here is going to be a great addition to the town.
And we know the level of experience because we looked at the applications for you two meetings ago.
Mm-hmm.
And Chief Wonka, we were aware of yours as well. So we need to do two things tonight. We just wanted to meet you, see if there's any questions as well from the board or from you. And then we need to do an appointment as well.
Okay.
Okay. So I'll entertain a motion for an appointment unless there's any other questions. Bernie, do you have any? You have that look.
No.
Okay.
I was
You have a
waiting
look
for
at
Alex.
Oh. Is that the, will Alex do the motion look?
I just want to know, do we do a grade and step for these individuals? Need a grade and step
know, I
for
always-
Phil Wonka here?
No, there's actually a set.
A set, that's right. There's a set rate. That's right. So, Phil will then, when we're ready, be appointed as a paramedic or as an EMT?
Should be an EMT.
EMT, okay, that's not here.
See scheduled appointments.
All right, Phil. So I see that you have an extensive history with the Massachusetts Army National Guard.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to hear a little bit about that. That's 24 years.
So I joined straight out of high school in 1990. Had a couple breaks in service, but I retired in 2014.
What was your work with them? What were
I
you?
was an infantry soldier.
Infantry.
Wow.
Nice.
Thank you for your service, sir.
And at what point in your career with the Mass Army National Guard did you discover that you enjoyed emergency medical technician work?
I would say it was when I moved to town of Irving back in '97. That's when I joined the fire department.
Wow.
We joined about the same time.
Yeah, very much same time.
Yeah.
I bought a house in town and started a family and joined the fire department.
It's a
Your
long
kids
time.
must be so proud of you guys.
It's been trying on the family life sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it is time consuming, isn't it? And you never know when the bell's going to go off.
Or what you're going to encounter. I know we've talked about that before.
What do you hope to contribute to Northfield EMS?
I want to see the service grow. So we, as a town, got on board with Northfield a couple of years ago, and I don't want to see the system fail. Myself joining it just broadens that scope of work for them, and helps them expand into the, into new uncharted territories, especially in this day and age where everybody's screaming for help.
Right. Right. I'm all set.
I have another question, if
Mary,
I may, Madam Chair.
yes.
I don't want to put you gentlemen on the spot, but are you excited about the new emergency facility building that will allow you larger space and more equipment and area? And,
Yeah, that's always a good thing.
okay.
I think, yeah, it will be beneficial. The buildings that we work with, obviously fire and EMS and stuff, and there's some shoebox living kind of going on for sure. And some towns are even less fortunate than this. Hopefully your new building gets to go, and it's definitely something that I think will benefit all the emergency, police, fire, EMS, all that, so they can be more even intertwined and work together stronger, and which hopefully will grow, Northfield EMS, which will in turn help the town of Northfield and then help the town of Irving.
Yeah.
Which, it's a wonderful bond that we got going on for sure. The dynamic is awesome with the group of folks that run by Chief Fortier and these Todd and the top brass for sure, and then working with us has been great for trainings. It's broadened the horizons with our folks that are just the first responders and such that are taking more interest in the EMS side of the house, which really is a huge part of, it's not so much fire anymore because we're so safe. It's people, no matter how hard you try, people are still going to need aid.
Right.
And so it's giving them even they want to be involved more. And so hopefully it'll just continue to flourish.
Well, we're working really hard to try and facilitate that facility, to move it forward, to bring us all into the now, to 2023, not 1976, or, so we're really doing our jobs here so that you can be comfortable doing your job and know that we're working hard over here on your behalf.
I think Keith brought it up a while ago. It's taken the forgotten part of the northeast county, and that's going to be the emergency services building is going to be an important part of that.
Yeah.
And it's brought us to the forefront where we don't have to rely on anybody else.
Right.
I feel we're doing an amazing job, and with the help of our partners, it's a win-win.
Here, here.
So
We were in a disgusting situation before we were able to join forces with Northfield and help them grow there. And they've been just an asset to us. And we were in hard times. We didn't know what we were going to get if you were going to get an ambulance, how long it was going to be,
Right.
and you didn't know what you were going to end up with. And most of the time, people didn't know where even Irving was. So
Sure.
it was, we now don't have to worry about that. And going to a medical that is not, we're not as well equipped, obviously, as the ambulance service is.
Mhm.
So to know what you're getting and to know the people that that are coming into you is like a comfort factor, like unbelievable.
Well said.
Yeah, thanks for that, because I don't think a lot of people actually realized how bad it was. I mean, even 5 years ago when I was still working in Irving, it's like we would get there and we'd be lucky to maybe see a couple people from the fire department. It was the same people we'd always see if there was a medical call, and we'd be there doing what we could, but then not know when an ambulance was going to show up, and sometimes it would just take forever. I mean, especially on car accidents, you got a major highway going through there. So just to hear from people who are coming from Irving about how much of a huge asset what Mark Fortier and his crew and everybody has done is great to hear. Like, we know it, we've heard about it, but it's great to hear the perspective from other towns to say, we don't know what we would do without this, because it's really been monumental. I mean, I honestly don't know what even Northfield would do without it. And if we had a bit better of a EMS service. It's like rooted here, and before it's really built itself up, I don't know where we would be if we didn't have this.
It's actually scary to think about it now.
Yeah.
Compared to where we were to where we've come. It's
kind of like how did we get by? Like that's kind of we're real lucky it didn't cost someone their life.
I would say it was by the skin of everybody's teeth. It was just it worked out
right
at the time.
And perseverance.
You can't operate an emergency services on the hope of it.
No, it doesn't work that way.
No.
And I'm proud because I've got skin in the game. I live in Irving. I work up here. I'm also in Irving, so I'm very proud to see how far we've come in the last 2 years.
Yeah,
I'm just very proud.
It's cool to see. It's cool to see where we've come from, but also see how much growth is possible still in front of us, and how that helps this community and surrounding communities.
Well, so there's been a lot of talk amongst the county about regionalization, and I'm not necessarily a huge fan of forced regionalization.
Right.
I think you need to foster these workings amongst themselves.
Yeah.
This is truly a regional partnership that's taking form here.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be Big Brother, but these small partnerships that really can mesh and can work well can make it better for everybody involved.
Yep.
Well, you guys are really describing an organic process, right? As opposed to something that's been dictated. So I think there's strength in that because it's been built from the ground up. And you guys have seen a lot since 1997. So when I look at you guys, I'm looking at a ton of experience over time, and knowing the landscape of what's going on with the ambulance service in general, especially in rural areas. I think we're incredibly lucky and fortunate to have you.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're working hard at it.
Yeah.
I like those terms right there. I'm putting that down into my select board notes. Forced regionalization versus organic regionalization.
Right.
Those are great. I like that.
Yeah, because you're not going to have a great
approaches.
team camaraderie if you're being forced to do something. I mean, you guys take care of yourself, police yourself. You don't need outside people police, you know what I mean?
They know what they're doing.
You're the experts.
When trainings can be enjoyable after you've worked all week long, something's working well.
Something's going right.
That's good.
Morale.
Yep.
So,
Well, thank you for coming here. And
Okay, did we do
things.
the appointment?
There is that.
That's you, Alex.
Just want to make sure we take care of business.
Proudly make a motion to appoint Phil Wonka to the Northfield EMS as an EMT, term expiring December 31st, 2023.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Welcome aboard, Phil.
Welcome officially aboard.
What about Ryan?
We
did
got
those
them.
guys.
Oh, we did that. All right.
Yeah, we're
And
just
Brandon,
meeting them in
right.
person, so we get the full.
That's right.
We took down the sight unseen.
That we did. It was. I'm proud of us. It was. We were like, wait, we can do this.
Thank you so much, you guys.
Have a
We
good
really
rest of
for
the
your
appreciate it.
support as well. Thank you.
We
Yeah.
do
We
that.
appreciate it.
100%.
Yes, and thank you to Chief Fortier. We know
Oh, please.
he wanted to be here, but he's
Yeah.
working.
He's
so.
unfortunately working in the town
Yeah.
barn, so.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to the large meeting rooms. We can have some decent trainings in the new public facilities building. So I'm praying.
So are we.
Yes.
I'm gonna be the first dummy. For the training.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, folks.
All right, have a good rest of the evening.
You too.
Thank you for
Thanks.
being
Yeah,
here.
thank you for your
See you all.
service.
See you, Phil.
Okay,
Yep, you too.
that was great.
I got to talk to them all night.
Yeah, we'll do
Yeah.
another. Well, I think we're gonna talk to Mark because I know he was busy and
I mean,
texted. We'll
So-
have Mark come in and talk a little bit more about how this whole collaboration is working.
so far this has been a great meeting. I mean, Cooper and these gentlemen. and-
Yeah, well, it only gets better from here because we really get to dive into lots of details. So
Well, let's do it.
yeah, so buckle up. Okay, meetings and events attended by select board members. Bernie?
Okay, I went and took part and observed the pipe filming. They were doing more
yeah.
pipe filming. And they were also
For the sewer?
cleaning some of them. They were blasting the pipes out. Where they had high pressure hose going down and cleaning out some of the roots and that on the pipes
Oh, wow.
too. So I watched them do that.
Where was that, Bernie?
It was up towards Highland Street, some of the streets off of Highland. where I was. That's where they were that
Okay.
particular day.
Okay,
Yeah, there was
cool.
some pretty bad roads because you could see the camera going
Oh,
through, and
wow.
you could see some of the blockage coming through the joints, infiltrating the system. So, but,
We're glad that's cleaned up.
Wow.
well, it's clean. Some of it is.
Some of it is.
Yeah.
More to come.
Yeah. And then I went to the sewer commission meeting last week. I went to the caucus,
Oh, yeah.
and then I attended the Friends of the Northfield Seniors today.
Oh, nice.
Busy guy.
Yeah. Mary?
I went to my Franklin Regional Transit Authority meeting,
Oh, right.
and they are working very hard to implement them. Well, they're trying to open their new building. They have a new facility, and they are doing really, really well on that. It's moving forward. It's a maintenance facility and a transit facility, and they should be cutting the ribbon around mid to the end of June.
Okay.
And and they're also struggling greatly with staffing bus drivers. They have like a second shift, a third shift. They also have a shift that is just for the elderly, and also a shift that's all free. And they're going all over Franklin County, and it's been very trying for them and to staff bus drivers. They're pretty good in their administration office, but finding drivers is very challenging for them right now. And then I'm looking forward to their annual meeting that they're going to have May 18th. And that's it.
Okay. Heath?
I just had the Emergency Services Building Committee last Wednesday. That's the only thing I've had. We'll discuss that. And
Yeah.
Nothing for me.
Okay, I'm sat in on the Emergency Services Building Committee via Zoom and the Finance Committee, so relatively light week.
Was that last night?
Yep.
Yeah.
And then, well, at this point, they're meeting every week, so I'm following. Last week I came in person, but last night I watched the Finance Committee thanks to BNC TV. So, and their updated website. Okay, town administrators update.
Okay, so mostly I've been working on budgets and warrants. So the warrants are in for review with the attorney. They look at the language, even though you're reviewing the contents. I just always run it by them to make sure all the T's are crossed and I's are dotted for language. They have both the special and the annual to review. Classification project is moving along. We've got most of the positions responded to. There's still a few holdouts, but they're going to hopefully start interviewing a few select people to work to work on finishing up those job descriptions so that we can then start classifying. Starting to work with Mallory on some potential new grants. We're looking at the culvert and small bridge grants that are coming up in the spring. We are also working on should be starting to review the storefront improvement request, ARPA funding. Hopefully as soon as I get back. And then we have several one-stop grant applications that we sent in for review, and it will be picking up the pieces on that as well to start moving forward with that.
Okay.
And then most of the rest of it, I've been to the emergency services buildings and the various other committees, but they're on the agenda. So is the budget. So I'll wait till we get to those topics.
Okay. And just for clarification,
Talking on the Mallory point, are you talking about the culvert and the small bridge on Highland?
No. That's actually a different grant.
Okay.
We're going to be putting that together on the Complete Streets grant.
Okay.
So we're looking at different bridge and culverts that Tom is interested in right now for those other specific grants.
Okay. We kind of need a scorecard on the different the different grants for the different projects. Okay, sounds good. And I think that's it. Any questions or comments for Andrea? No. Okay, because most of what she needs to talk about is actually in the business. So we'll jump into business. So the first thing off the top, before we dive into all the upcoming warrant stuff and the emergency services, we were going to talk about the Campus Center Community Collaborative Committee, otherwise known as the C5 Committee.
Yep.
Heath, do you want to walk us through what we need to know
So
or
yeah,
do?
After our last meeting, the Moody Center has basically elected to discontinue their participation in the C5 committee. They had a host of reasons, but said, you know, they've got to turn their attention to other things, and basically are going to discontinue their participation. So it is a setback for the committee. I basically would like to propose that we will table the committee. Our next meeting is in May, and I think it would be best for us to table the committee until we have the newly elected board, whatever that looks like, and then discuss the future of that committee in a little bit more depth. I do feel that at certain times that committee has been a little less collaborative than I had envisioned with my involvement. I feel like sometimes it had been contentious. I sometimes feel like leaving the meetings, we haven't been a wholeheartedly collaborative committee. So I'm not sure what its purpose actually, if we're fulfilling the mission of the committee the way that I think it was originally envisioned by the select board. So I think that's what the subject of the discussion should be, and then we can pick up the meetings from there should the select board decide not to do that. But I think for the best use of everybody's time, we have to revisit what the committee actually looks like going forward, considering especially the fact that one of the largest contributors of the collaboration isn't going to continue to participate. So
Well, okay, so that's important news. So thanks for sharing that, and we'll revisit it in the future with a specific topic.
So yeah, I think
to look
the meeting
at
right after we have the election,
Yep.
it would be good to have it right then, just because we can keep the date tentative, I guess, because it worked for everybody, but just figure out, as far as the select board, have a further discussion about the ins and outs, the goods, the bads, what's the purpose of the committee, and if it's something worth continuing to have in town.
We need to do that in general anyway, because right after the election, we have to reassign ourselves to the various committees.
Right. So I figured that would be a good time to discuss it.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay. Any questions, comments, or we'll move on to the...
I'm disappointed that the Moody Center, I mean, one of the,
You need to have, when you have a committee, you have to have a purpose. If you don't have a purpose, then there's no reason to exist in the eyes of public administration. There needs to be a purpose assigned to everything that has been created or has been budgeted. And when I mean, I haven't really been following this committee too closely, but just from what I've heard from individuals, that there's just no point to this committee, maybe at this point in time or in the future. So.
Yep.
Well,
but Heath said it.
I think I'm just going to leave it at
look
that.
At it in a fresh new, whatever it's worth.
I think there's been quite a few other committees, like the Select Board, Planning Board, etc., that have to deal with the Moody Center through whatever they're proposing. So anyway, I think it's been a challenging year, and maybe that's reflected in the committee. So
yeah, and I think one of the biggest issues that we faced in that last meeting was that Steve Sierniski sent me a couple of emails just for agenda items to inquire where certain projects might be, and when some of the questions did come up regarding those projects, James Spencer didn't have any updates and referred to that other people were the ones who were in charge of it because they have different LLCs that are running the project. So we didn't really get any information regarding the current projects that we were hoping to get, and then also really no names of the people that we could try to inquire with to maybe invite them to future meetings, because they didn't know who the names were of the people who were the stakeholders in the LLCs. So it's, do we invite those people? Are they organized into this? If we continue the committee, those are the conversations I think we need to have before we continue or discontinue it. But I mean, really at this time, we're not going to get any updates on the things that are going on in town, and I think it is a really unfortunate turn of events that's led to their decision, because it degrades part of the name of the committee, the collaborative portion of it, the community collaborative. So.
And if I may, just one more thing about that, because I'm on that board too. It's disappointing to me because it feels one more yardstick, one more distance between the town and the Moody Center has now been sealed by them stepping away from the collaborative meeting, and it feels like a disconnect completely. Like, okay, well, Moody Center, Northfield. We were trying to bring that together because there's so much activity. It's a massive piece of land and structures. It's important to Northfield. It's the history. And now we're out. So I'm disappointed in that, but I'm not surprised. Let me put it that way. I'm not surprised at all.
Okay, duly noted. Anything else on this topic? Because we'll revisit it. Bernie.
Actually, it doesn't surprise me, the Moody Center stepping away. I mean, from the beginning, I felt their intentions weren't to collaborate. It was solely their intentions for their own good and their, movement of their projects they wanted. I don't think they had anything in mind as far as to benefit Northfield. I felt it was very self-centered on their part, everything that I saw from them during this time.
Okay. We'll come back to this. We have to come back to all the committee structures anyway. And after the election in May, we have to reassign ourselves. So let's just note this, and then we'll revisit it. And that'll give an opportunity for, if we need to, you have the meeting for the C5 scheduled, it was late May, I think,
like
anyway.
May 26th, yeah.
Okay, so if stuff gets reassigned, then there's always an opportunity to meet with that group and get some suggestions and maybe have a discussion about that. Okay, alrighty. Emergency services facility update. So we've got a lot to chat about. Andrea, do you want to start, or Heath, do you?
I
know.
Basically, I can.
What are your thoughts based on the last few meetings that you've been in?
I think we're making great progress just because the budget is kind of coming into focus, and I mean, I can pull up the exact numbers here, but it's coming basically either on pace or just below what some initial estimates might have come in at. So where is that number here? Total construction estimated cost 11.
Is this from the, sorry to interrupt, is this from the estimators?
This is what was discussed in the last Emergency Services Committee. So this was prepared by Fogarty and Associates, and I think everything combined we're at 11.5 million, which, given all the cost of everything that has been going on, that's a bit lower than what the original projections were going to be. And given the size of the building, I think that's actually pretty amazing. Especially since how much was trimmed off of it to try to keep the costs down, and then some of the modifications that were made to the building to give it a little bit more of a Northfield character with the archways and a couple other things that they did that definitely changed the structure of the building just a little bit, but added a better curb appeal because this thing is going to be potentially right up on Main Street. I think that the fact that it came in well under 15, which I think was their preliminary estimates, was that it was going to be somewhere in the ballpark of 15. I thought that was great news, but
And they, do I remember correctly that they were able to get rid of the radio tower?
Yeah, that was one of the things that
And
we
that was
discussed.
a big expense and also kind
An
of a
eyesore.
visual eyesore.
Yeah, it was a huge eyesore. It
Okay.
wasn't necessary. It was a 75-foot radio tower in the back of this beautiful building, and it was a big, metal structure that just stood up behind the entire building.
Yeah.
And the cupola up top, that everything pretty much is going to be lower than that, but it can still go on roof lines and still effectively do what it needs to do.
So they got a smaller solution that just goes on the roof line.
Yeah, like
instead?
basically when we were
Okay.
looking at the schematics, you have basically the building is shaped like a T. The long part, I guess, of the T going backwards is lower than the street side of it, and that's where the radio towers, I guess, could go. So it's going to be much less of an eyesore and still get the function done that it needs to do. So I thought that was a huge benefit to.
And they cut off some money off of that too.
Yep,
Yeah.
definitely.
Okay, good. Okay, Andrea, is there anything that you wanted to add? I just wanted to clarify, there is something called an estimator in this process.
Yes, we've had it estimated several times. The most recent estimate was done by the designers. So they just had this done on March 15th. So it's pretty recent. It's only a week old. And you have to remember that the cost estimate not only is an estimate, but it also includes some additional things, even some contingency. So you have to build that in no matter what. So they're also building in contingency, and they're building in there's $100,000 insurance that you have to carry during the construction as well. So it's not all just on the building, but there is, I mean, the direct cost is estimated at under 10 million. It's 9.983, but there's conditions, administrative, OMP, you have to put those conditions in there. So it's possible the building won't cost 11.5 when it's all said and done, but you have to go with various other contingencies as well. So what you're going to borrow is only what you need in the end. Got it. So also just to kind of give an update on where they are in the process.
Yeah.
I met with the Concom last week to work on the outlining the resource area delineation. That has happened. And that portion of the proposed site has been approved during their meeting. So there has been agreement between the Concom and the consultant working with the team, with the committee. They've got their flags mapped. They've got appearing to be to be in consensus on that. And so there's just some more paperwork that's involved in that. There's a order of resource delineation that has to be signed. And that'll take care, that'll deal with the pieces of the Conservation Commission. So there's still a few more technical pieces there, but they did have that meeting. They have agreed on the resource delineation areas, and then there will be discussion about what mitigation might have to happen if there's intrusion into resource areas. So that'll keep moving forward, but it's a big hurdle to get that area in agreement about where everybody can move forward now on the design involved and its impact on any resource area. The next step is the planning board site review. That's tomorrow, 4:00. They have a meeting, the planning board, which will do the site review. And they will go through, if you look at the town's bylaws, there's a section that says site review, and they'll go through all the conditions on that. Noise, parking, lighting, character of the building and all that. That's all part of the site review process as outlined in the town's bylaws. So you can look at that online and you can see the kinds of the things that they will consider at their meeting. It is not a hearing, and it is not the issuing of any kind of permit, but it is their ability to say, hey, what are you going to do about ambient lighting? What are you going to do about this and that? And to ask and work with the committee and the consultants and the designer to make sure that all of those things are taken into consideration and we have the best possible outcomes for the site itself and the building. The last thing that will be happening with the town committee is the variance hearing with the ZBA on March 28th. If you've at all seen the design, you'll see there's a little part of the building, the entranceway that comes forward. That comes within the 25-foot setback, not the whole building, just a small portion of the front. So they have to have a variance from the ZBA, and that will happen on the 28th. So those are the three committees that they have to meet with still, although there's still some more work to be done with the conscom to get through the process, but it is progressing. And everybody's optimistic that all of those can be met and that everybody will work together to do the best, to create the best outcomes. The general contractor bids are out. They're due back on April 12th. And just so people know that the Council on Aging is having a coffee hour with the OPM, the project manager, and Skip, and maybe some other members of the board for the senior center. So to discuss the project, and that's on April 4th at 10:30 during the coffee hour at the senior center. So people are welcome to attend that. Especially, we wanted to reach out to different constituencies and who come together, and obviously the seniors come together for their coffee hour. So we were invited to come to that, and we'll be attending that to answer questions for that constituency or anybody else who attends. And then, of course, the special town meeting is on April 19th. There will be an information session prior to that vote. So the structure is to everyone to sign in. Then they will recess the meeting, have a whole presentation to talk about finance, design, project moving forward, and all of that prior to, and answer questions prior to any vote on the project. And the votes will have been open. I mean, the general contractor bids will have been opened on April 12th. So we will actually have real numbers. I mean, not that we don't have good estimates, but we will have the actual general contractor's bids at that time. So we are certainly heading down the straight to the finish line, but there's quite a bit more to do, and still more meetings ahead so that people can still have input and ask questions if they so choose.
Madam Chair, what time does that meeting start? Which meeting? The
Special
special
meeting?
meeting?
I don't think that's.
It hasn't been posted yet.
Right.
Okay.
So I'm not exactly sure whether it's gonna, I have to talk to Nate. We've been talking, we didn't want it to be too late, but we wanted to certainly leave an hour or so at least for presentation, a short presentation, but mostly for questions. So I can't see it starting before 6, maybe 6:30, 7 o'clock at the latest, but we haven't, the warrant, the draft warrant right now says 6:30, but that it hasn't been signed. So that's something you can discuss. The select board gets to choose that, really, if you want to make an input on that. The draft just says 6:30 for the placeholder at the moment.
And we also
Usually ask PVRS in advance, so if anything else is going on at PVRS.
Right, I believe Sandra has filed for those dates. For annual and special.
Okay. All right, so more to come on the actual time.
But right now it's targeted for April 19th. And you mentioned a senior center, presumably anyone, you don't need to be a senior, can go to that.
No, you don't. You're just looking fit into their calendar.
And that's April 4th at 10:30 a.m. for those
Correct.
morning
And we
folks.
will have the project manager there. And I know Skip at least, but other members of the committee might be present as well. I'll certainly be there. So they can answer questions about the project as, going forward.
I just have a couple of comments.
Questions for the board. So
A lot of the questions that came up in phase 1 last year between the annual town meeting in October when we did the public forum were, what about the Conservation Commission? What about the Planning Board, et cetera, et cetera. There were a lot of questions about wetlands. And what I'm noticing and what I observed in October was that many of the questions that were coming up in phase 1 were actually destined to be answered in phase 2 as they move through the committee processes. So here we are, we're actually moving through the committee processes, Planning Board's next, and then ZBA and Conservation Commission was last week or the week before. So and we're planning on doing a public session in conjunction with the special town meeting on April 19th. We've got the senior center presentation on the 4th. We had Skip and the fire department had the pancake breakfast, and I think a lot of things were answered then. So I guess the question for the board is, What else? And I'm also noticing at the building committee meetings that there's maybe like one or two folks outside of the committee who are attending, myself included, because I'm not on the committee, but like Pam Eldridge is always there.
Oh, and I can also point out that actually the next Emergency Services Facility Committee meeting is the day after the bid opening on the 13th. That's a public meeting. It is at 4 o'clock. We do it at Town Hall. So it will also be the day after, so people can attend that, certainly to hear. I mean, I'm presuming we'll discuss the results. They're not going to be awarding the bid. That actually goes to the select board at some time in the future, and that would only be done after review of the bid documents by the consultant and all the pricing and all they'll check their references and all that. But there will be at least some discussion on Thursday, April 13th, at the 4 o'clock at the Emergency Services Committee meeting. So that will be the first real big open meeting that we will have that kind of information.
Okay, so is there something that we also need to vote on?
In the election.
Well, that's really, it's a piece that you guys haven't had a discussion on yet. I will be taking, we're taking it to the Finance Committee on Monday to discuss.
Okay.
We're just now to get pricing, or I say pricing, I say estimates from the financial consultant. We're estimating high because we don't want any surprises. But again, they are only estimates. In fact, this cost estimate that we just received is lower than we were actually using to do our estimating for annual costs for borrowing, because we wanted to make sure that we're safely within any kind of margin we would get. I just received those Monday from the and with a bunch of questions still from our financial advisor. So I'm working on that this week, and then Monday the Finance Committee will be the first ones to kind of tackle it. And I'm assuming I would invite the select board if you want to do a joint meeting, or if you just want us to post you in case a bunch of you show up. There really does need to be a discussion between the Finance Committee and certainly the select board as to whether or not you want to put this all under the levy, want to put some portion of it or all of it under a debt exclusion. That's now that we really couldn't have that serious discussion until we really have numbers in front of us. So that is a discussion to be had in the hopefully very near future.
Okay. All right. So lots to
absorb.
Yes.
I think the challenge is in communicating this all out to folks. There's a possibility that based on information that's coming up over the next few weeks, we might need to vote on something on. The annual election is May 2nd. So, and we had discussed back in October that we thought it made sense to do a separate meeting from the annual town meeting so that we could do a public presentation in addition to the actual town meeting. So from a timing standpoint, we're trying to accomplish getting the information out there, allowing people to look at that info for both the special town meeting as well as the annual town meeting. But in the event something is voted on and May 2nd, all of this information is needed in order for folks to make a vote, correct? I'm just looking at the timing because I know that's come up.
Right, if you're going to put a ballot question on, you really can't have the ballot question come before the vote on the project as a whole, because it wouldn't make sense. You wouldn't vote to debt exclude a portion of the project when you haven't even voted on funding the project, because you wouldn't even have the numbers in front of you. So really, if you're going to put a portion of it on the ballot on May 2nd, you have to have the vote for the project prior to that. So that's kind of how we back. Otherwise, you'd have to have a special election, which following your annual election within weeks, which makes absolutely no sense and is, I think your town clerk would just read you the riot act, because reprogramming the ballot boxes and reprinting ballots and doing all that to ask one question really seems counterproductive. And that would be a lot of work. So in order to do, if you're going to do this as a ballot question, it meant that we had to have a special town meeting prior to your annual election.
Okay.
And so that's where we ended up with the April meeting prior to and we wanted to have a little bit of time between them so that people can digest one and then the other. But we are looking at them together. You've got the budget. We've got the budget pieces now, as much as we're going to know in the next week or so when the warrant comes out. So it's not like we're going into this blind. We will know what you're proposing for the annual budget. We already do know what the finance committee has recommended. You have that before you tonight. So we will be able to contemplate the two pieces together.
Okay.
Prior to both of the town meetings.
Okay, so I think we can move on, but I wanted to advise and ask the board to think about as we go through the other topics is the stuff that we're going over tonight is pretty complicated and there's a lot of moving parts and it all needs to be communicated out and met on over the next few weeks. So if we could all just be thinking as we go through this, how can we help people understand these pieces and concepts and how we can communicate them out, I would appreciate it. So let's move on to the draft of the special town meeting warrant, and some of these points will continue to pop up, but I just wanted to lay that out for you guys. Okay.
I've been reviewing the sheet and I'm not seeing anything that is standing out to me. The language looks pretty standard of what we see on a town meeting warrant document.
Right, and I can explain to you why you have two articles there. The first article, you can reverse the order here, it doesn't make much difference. The first article is you have to remember that you signed contracts, but there's milestones in your contracts. So for example, you signed a contract for essentially project management services all the way through to completion. But each step of the way, if the project doesn't move forward, you're not obligated to pay the bulk of that. So if the project doesn't pass, you're not going to pay the project manager to do construction administration. It's all been negotiated, but you have to fund the second part if the project moves forward. So we really funded most of the first part of the construction administration, the engineering. We wanted to do as much as you could with what you have saved up and the different funding sources you have to take that out of any borrowing, to keep that piece out. But if you are going to move forward with the project, you now have to fund the second portions of those contracts. We didn't pre-fund them.
Okay, so that's Article 1. Okay.
Article 1 and 2, we can switch them around. But I figured the first one, and if you vote Article 1 and you don't end up going that way, then it's not like we're going to spend the money with the OPM on a contract.
I would recommend for what we do sometimes with these warrant documents is we need to have like that in bold note beneath it, because there's definitely some people in town who don't understand this type of language. Right. So we kind of have to simplify it.
That doesn't go on the document you signed, but it's definitely the document. You always have the annotated document out before town meeting. So people will get those notes with the numbers and the explanations on the document after you sign the warrant. We always put together the notes on the warrant. So there will be notes for people to see.
Okay, and when do we need to sign the special town meeting warrant?
Your next meeting, April 4th.
Okay.
Got
a lot coming up on April 4th. Okay, so Article 1 is really about the project and professional management of the project for the subsequent phase.
And temporary borrowing.
Gotcha.
We're trying not to finance those. We're trying to keep as much out of the borrowing to keep the borrowing low, using funds that you have in existence. So you have to think of it like a mortgage. If you go to build a house, you take short-term borrowing loans until you're done with the construction, and then you wrap the whole thing up into a mortgage. It's exactly the same process here. We use something called state house notes. That goes through the state, the Department of Revenue, and they do short interim borrowings But when each note rolls over, you have to pay the interest on that note. And then we pay that as we go along. And then in the end, when we have the whole project done and we have all our costs, we do the bond, the borrowing for the final amount. So that's why you'll see that it talks about engineering,
Sure.
design, architecture, project management, borrowing costs, or construction. We put that in because if there's funding left over, we can throw that onto the construction. If we don't use all the money that we appropriate for this, we want to have the flexibility to put that towards construction to keep the borrowing down.
Gotcha. Got it.
So it's a big catch-all of everything we could spend on this project to keep the borrowing down in the end.
Right.
Okay, questions?
No, I answered my own
Okay,
question.
all right. And Article 2, can you summarize what that is?
That's the actual approval of the project. This is written by bond counsel. And it basically says that the town allows you to appropriate a sum of money to build this, including any costs. And this is standard to demolish, design, engineer, construction, site prepare, acquisition, installation of everything, furniture, fixtures, equipment. They put everything in. That's the kitchen sink. So that you're able to do that, and then to authorize the treasurer with the approval of the select board, because you will always sign those notes, to fund such appropriation by borrowing. So the big thing here is ultimately it's approval to borrow.
Andrea, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Or anybody? Pardon me, sorry, Tyler. It says at the bottom, by borrowing or take any other action thereon or in relation thereto.
Standard language.
Standard language?
That's at the bottom of every motion.
Thank you.
That just allows you, in case you forgot some little piece of the project and it's related to the article, to be able to incorporate it potentially in your motion when you figure it out. It's not to add, oh, and by the way, we're going to, build something else on the side. It's just in relation to that article.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. All right, so.
Borrowing article, so I believe, and I'll confirm it, but I'm pretty sure that it actually requires a supermajority vote at town meeting.
Yeah.
2/3 vote.
Okay.
2/3.
Right.
Authorization to borrow.
2/3.
2/3 vote
Yeah.
required.
I'll double check, but I'm pretty sure it's 2/3 to borrow.
Thank you, Andrea.
Okay, and for those who are worried about quote unquote tax rates.
Oh yeah, there's been a lot of talk on social media about that.
And we'll start talking about that now that I have some numbers from the and some questions that I'm going back and forth with on our financial advisor. He's going to be giving us. Now, you have to understand a couple things when you go to try and do an estimated tax rate. We only estimate the tax rate now based on our budget. So although you guys will do a set budget at town meeting, we do put forward an estimated tax rate. It is always an estimate because the revenue sources are estimated. For example, when we go to town meeting in May, unless the general court, unless the House and the Senate pass their final unrestricted general government aid, we don't know that number. We always take the governor's number. It is always smaller or the same, but it can often go up. So that's one revenue. We have to estimate local receipts. That's car excise taxes, trash bag sales, fines, fees, late payments. We estimate a number for that. Again, an estimation. We generally estimate, I think we had in the budget some 400 and some 45,000. Last year we took in 650,000. So that means that $200,000 is additional revenue. So when we actually go to set the next year's tax rate, it actually is going to lower from our estimate. We actually took in more revenue than we estimated. But we always have to be conservative with our estimate, because we do not want to be in a position where we estimate a high revenue and we come in lower. Then you're going to have a real problem with balancing your budget. So we can do some projections, and we will. We can do some estimations, and we will. The best estimates will be once we have that general contractor's number, because that at least will tell us what the project is going to cost, give or take contingencies, but it will be a much firmer number than the estimates we're getting. Again, we will still always have an estimate from town meeting budget, but we know what that number is going to be. So we will have two pieces that are fairly firm on the expenditure side. Revenue still a little, we try to estimate conservatively with revenue. So we're hoping for the better, but we will have some estimates. But yes, I mean, there's no doubt it will affect the tax rate. It is a large borrowing. It is going to be over 30 years, but you're looking at 900,000, 800,000, some number pretty high up over 30 years that you're going to have to pay each year to make the payment on this building. There's no doubt.
Right, but from a process standpoint, so I appreciate the discussion of the description. From a process standpoint, for those that are concerned, we're right at that point where the various departmental budget pieces have concluded. FinCom reviewed those last night. We went through the PVRS process. The tech school just presented this week or last week? Last week, but they sent us a letter now with their firm number. So we need that firm number in the tech school. So this is all coming together for those that are not familiar with the process. And I know Mary and I always talk about this. It takes like 2 years to get up to speed on the process, and then we still have questions. This is the time of year where all the puzzle pieces are coming together and then will be presented. So it's important to follow the FinCom and the Select Board meetings both at this point in time. And then we'll work on absorbing the info and communicating it out, but we don't have all the puzzle pieces in the big picture right at this very moment because they're all just finishing up, correct?
Right, we're getting starting to put them all together. And we'll put them together, but again, until you go to town meeting and vote it, until all the revenue sources come, but we'll have an estimate. We're not going to go in blind. We're not going to ask people to go in blind. We'll give them an estimate and we'll try to be conservative. In other words, we're not going to try to say, oh, it's going to be X, and it really turns out to be higher than X. Right. Our best case scenario is we say it's going to be X, and it actually comes in lower than X, because that's the best case scenario we can present is the worst case scenario. We want it to be so that people aren't surprised, that we're not hiding anything, that we're giving as much information as we can, which are the numbers we're working on now between the budget, the estimates based on cost estimates, and then obviously when we get the general contractor's bid. The pieces will slowly get clearer and clearer until we get, a fairly decent estimate. But again, until everything's all set, we won't know exactly.
And I'm just going to reiterate for the folks at home. This is why we went this way with the Emergency Services Building Committee, was so that we could get detailed estimates to present as opposed to just kind of ballparking it. So
we were asked to actually come with real numbers.
Right.
Right. They went several years ago with an estimate and people were not comfortable with just an estimate. So this way we will actually be coming with a bid. The general contractor will say, I've got all the pieces. I have everything you've done. Here is what I will build your building for. Boom. Right. Now we put a little contingency because if something happens and they find something they didn't anticipate, but that's minor and that's not expected to be spent. It's contingency in an emergency, but they're going to come back with a hard and fast number and say, based on the specs that you have, and you can see them at the office, they're this thick, and the drawings, this is what I will build your building for.
Okay, so summarize. All the pieces are coming together. We're anticipating a special town meeting on April 19th. We just reviewed a draft which only has 2 articles in it. We review the finalized one at the next select board meeting, right?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to, I'm just reiterating.
Yeah, wrapping that up. That's
okay.
Good. And I just have a quick question, Madam Chair. So in anticipation of the questions, misunderstanding and or lack of general understanding, that the public is definitely going to have in regards to this.
Well, yeah, it's complicated.
It is.
Yeah.
How can or when can we spell it out in layman's terms to the public, to the citizens, so as to minimize all the citizens' concerns, crosstalk, social media, making things up as they go along, or panic? Do you see what I'm saying, Alex?
Yeah, show up at the meeting.
That's what I keep saying to everybody for 2 years, but they don't. But then I go mental when I'm reading the next door neighbor.
Stay off social media.
Right.
All right, so we're not.
I want to help them all.
We're talking about communication in general.
Right.
So let's not focus on.
I just want to help them.
Yes, I know, and that's why I'm reiterating and explaining the process here.
Okay.
Because I talked
Fair
to somebody
enough. You
this
answered my question.
Right.
Yeah.
So I talked to somebody this afternoon who's like, "Well, I don't know about this. I don't know about that." And I said, "Well, there's a good reason, because we're right nearing the end of the point where all the pieces come together and we can actually explain what's going on."
Right.
So
I want the citizens to know that I'm trying to spoon feed them this information so that they don't have to keep banging their heads against the next door neighbor wall.
Well, I don't know about spoon feeding so much as how do you distill complicated financing arrangements that involve a state and town government processes, which I had a lot of experience in corporate cycles, finance cycles. So I felt like coming in, I'm going to understand municipal finance.
Completely different.
And I'm like, with all my experience as a director at a company doing budgets, quarterly budgets and all of that, municipal financing is really complicated and very different. But still, it's incumbent upon us to try and explain it, which is why I'm mentioning again that we have the senior center session coming up, that we're going to have a public information session, and we will summarize at finance and select board meetings and emergency services facility meetings as much as possible so that people don't have to absorb it all in one big chunk. But the challenge remains is getting folks to engage at this point in the process with whatever committee you want to. It's the finance committee or the select board or the emergency services building committee. Because I know they've had a really good robust public comment period. And lately that's kind of, nobody's really attending. So
Right.
Anyway, I just want to summarize that we're following a complicated process. We're going to be presenting complicated, complex financial terms for a town where we're tackling these topics. They haven't been tackled in decades, certainly years. So it's just, I'm just going to point out that it's a challenge.
I'm not sure the last time the town has ever borrowed. You may have never bonded ever. I mean, this is.
And we haven't borrowed.
You haven't undertaken a large capital project since the schools.
Right, and we've had, in the last year, we've tackled things like the water district, bringing that forward, and now we're tackling an emergency services facility, and it's a year-long topic to get to this point, and we're right at the point where we're getting the dollar figures, and as those come to light, we'll be discussing them at finance, select board, and the emergency services committee meetings over the next few weeks. So I guess the word to everyone is stay tuned over the next few weeks, because these meetings are going to be important.
So I guess the best thing that we can do to point anybody who's concerned or wants to be involved or be informed with anything that has to do with this building is to go check the website for the dates that are coming up, so they can be involved in whatever dates along the way to be informed on whatever it is they feel like they need to be informed on. But the most important date that they need to be ready for, keep an eye out for, is the special town meeting date.
April 19th.
That is our big meeting. So if they don't go to
anything else,
it's
go to
the April 19th meeting, because there was when the drawings from the recorder or drawings from our building went into the recorder,
Yeah.
there was a whole slew of comments on there that went all the way from why couldn't they find a better place to why isn't it centrally located to just all these different questions that it's like, we have gone through this, people, you know, and there's plenty of time, but we will have a date. And people were like, well, when there's a date, I want to be there.
Yeah.
Because so.
Well, and we're going to take the presentation that, I think you talked about that, Andrea. We're going to take the presentation that was done in October at the public forum and update that. So for example, if people still have site questions because let's say they didn't participate in anything over the last year.
Right. If
they still say, well, what about, doing it here or there? And then we can just pull that up and answer questions that way. So I think we'll be ready to go. The key thing is getting all the dollar figures because that's the bottom line for everybody.
Right.
Okay. The other thing is the Finance Committee, I forgot to mention this, I think they talked about this last night, is they talked about doing some sort of public information session on explaining the budget.
Yeah, someone's invited Dan, and he's working that out, to do some kind of dinner, spaghetti dinner, something where the Finance Committee would come and talk about the budget. This isn't just the project, this is the town annual budget. So you'd have to stay tuned on that. I don't have the details on that yet. He's supposed to be working that out.
Okay. So
Segue, let's get into it's 7:30. Let's get into the FY24 budget update.
So I think I sent you the memo that I also sent to the Finance Committee. Hopefully you got that memo in your homework. I didn't go through every single article, although I kind of did. I somehow missed Article 25, but it's a Community Preservation Committee article, so we'll get there. But I really tried to focus on ones where there were, I picked line items out of where there were like larger changes in each article. So I don't know if you want to go through the warrant by going through the memo, or you want to go through the memo and then back to the warrant. But I do need tonight, which the Finance Committee did last night, your votes to recommend or not recommend each financial or each article, because that goes in the handout at town meeting.
Well, I watched the FinCom meeting last night, and I think it makes sense
to go through your memo and
I tried to pull out the highlights of the articles,
right, and then vote on the articles as we need to. Right, you need us to vote on all of the articles so we can start putting together the annual town meeting warrant.
Correct.
Yeah.
I do the annotated one, which that we do as a handout so that everybody sees that.
Okay, so
Heath, can I hand that to you?
Yeah, I was actually going to ask a question about that one. I thought we were going to do the select board stipends in a warrant.
Oh, did you guys actually finally vote on that? This isn't set. No one signed it yet. So that's up to you if you want me to add some. I know it went back and forth, but I don't know that there was ever a final vote on it. It was discussion.
I think we agreed.
If there was a vote, I missed it.
I think we agreed to have it on the article, and we can make its own. We can have it on our own motion on the topic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That way it didn't look like we were burying it in the budget.
No, we're not burying it in the budget. What we had talked about was doing it as an article.
Right.
Yeah.
So you want a separate article for that?
Yeah. That way, if that way it does bring about citizens' discussion. That way, it doesn't look like we're trying to slide a huge percentage increase into the budget without a discussion.
Was there an amount? I don't recall there being.
Oh, we did do an amount.
Amount that was actually agreed upon.
coming back with.
We had an initial discussion and you were coming back with the amounts and the,
I think he did do some research.
right.
We did do.
So those amounts would need to be crafted into a warrant article. But why don't we go through all of the articles and then add that?
Well, just add last time
I can still add it.
Yeah.
last time we spoke, we were gonna do a comparison.
So again, this is we do these in pieces. So this is our first review, right? And then we're going to recommend articles be included on the warrant, correct? Similar to what Finance Committee did last night.
Yeah, you guys can determine if you want to remove an article, or you can leave an article and still vote not to recommend it. I mean, that's,
So that's what the finance
did last night is they walked through the memo with Andrea and they voted to recommend or not recommend, right? So that's what we're going to do, and anything that's missing, we need to point it out so that it all becomes the finalized package.
the sense of timing is, we'll bring it back obviously to your April 4th meeting. If it's ready to be signed, you could sign it on April 4th. If you feel you need more time with it, you're going to have to meet especially the next week, because April 18th, which is your following meeting, is too late for a May 1st town meeting to post. You have to post 2 weeks because we're going to have the election warrant with it. So we need 2 weeks posting, which means that it would have to be posted by April 17th, which means the 18th meeting is too late. So we could discuss it on the 4th, but you could still meet the next week with the agenda item simply being to sign the warrant. You don't have to have a full,
Okay, so
unless you're ready on the 4th.
All right, I'm gonna look at the rest of the board.
This is our first go round. We still have April 4th meeting. So again, April 4th will be another fun meeting to walk through all of these details for both the annual and the special. But this is our first go round. So let's go through it and then vote because some of these things are no-brainers. If we need more discussion, we've got April 4th, so we're not behind the timetable. If we needed to go beyond April 4th, Andrea's saying we could do that, but we would need a special meeting. But at this point, we don't know because we haven't been through this. Okay, so let's go through it, and then let's make sure that we address the concern that you brought up. Is there any other questions before we start? Because I just want to get started, and then the process will reveal itself as we go through it.
Exactly.
Okay. Andrea, start walking us through the articles, please, and we'll do it like the FinCom did it last night.
You don't even vote on. Those are non-financial. They are to waive the reading of the whole warrant. They're to hear the reports that are in the town annual report and to authorize the select board to apply for state and federal grants. So those are standard. They're in every warrant you do, and you haven't even historically voted to recommend them. They're just submitted by the select board and moved by you. The first warrant, right? They're sort of standard business.
Okay, Article 4.
Our first financial article is Article 4. This is $616.91 to cover prior year library bills for oil from Sandry. They missed them. Once they pass the end of the fiscal year, they then have to come to a town meeting to be approved. Usually there's a few that hang out every year. We find them. They just show up on someone's desk in August.
Okay, this is the only.
We had a few of these last year. This is the only one I'm seeing this year. Is that correct?
The only one I have is 2 invoices from Sandry for the library for oil. It's totaling $616.91, and I'm recommending you take it from free cash.
Okay, so do we need a motion to recommend
For then?
Yes, you need a motion to recommend each article as you go forward.
So can I get a motion
Recommend Article 4
So
then.
moved.
Second. Any discussion on the motion? We're cleaning up the building library bill that came in after the end of the fiscal year close for $616.91.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Great. Article 5, Omnibus.
Here's the big one. So I did, you can obviously talk about any section of it. And I think that the copy that I sent you has the current omnibus. It doesn't have the financing yet because I sent it to you before their recommendation, but they recommended all of 5 in one chunk. You can choose to do that or not. I will point out a couple of things that are in here that are the largest changes. Obviously, there's other changes and you can certainly discuss them.
Have you paused?
One moment. So for those who don't know what an omnibus is the entire
General government operation.
So it will include the school as well, correct?
Correct.
Yep. Schools, plural. Okay. All right. So we can discuss line by line as needed.
Right. So the 4th clerk position you'll see has an increase in it. Well, part of that, half of that increase is because she now does the finance committee. So we zeroed out, you'll see somewhat of a corresponding drop in the finance committee budget, because that has now been moved to the board's clerk. We didn't see any sense in keeping it chunked into separate chunks. It has moved it there. Plus, we rounded up a little so that actually it's a consistent number, 13 hours a week, the whole year. She does 10 now, and there's a small chunk where she does the additional 3 or 4 during finance time, but we just went to a full 13 hours a week for each year. So when she's not doing finance committee, we have plenty of other projects, and she's doing more and more minutes for various committees. So we have not found any problem with using her time. So this presents a $3,000 increase, but in fact, it's only a $1,500 increase because $1,500 is coming from the finance portion of the budget. A swap.
Questions on
Clerk. We talked about this 2 years ago, which was the goal was to get a centralized board clerk, so we'd get an efficient, experienced person who could do minutes for any committee, pretty much, but especially the more complicated ones. Right.
Part of the year. So if you have a position, you've got somebody who is more likely to take the full job and stay with it. So we don't have that constant turnover.
So we've been moving away
Having little portions over different committee budgets, instead having it centralized in one clerk position, and then deploying that experienced clerk as needed. Does that make sense?
So you see in the finance committee expenses, it went from 1,700 to 200 because the clerk position was moved out of that budget.
Okay. All right, so why don't we move through these
And
notes?
so is everybody okay with the board's clerk position, the changes? I mean, the clerk has already been there, but, okay. Full-time treasurer / collector. We've talked about this at different points, but this is where it comes to.
It is a $23,815 increase represented in both budgets. I do want to say I did a fair amount of research on this, and in fact, let me see if I can find the paperwork. Somebody sent out just a few weeks ago, while we were going through this process, the exact cost and advantages to small towns. Of course, I can't find it now. To go to full-time treasurer collectors, because so many people are having problems filling that position that the only way they can keep them is to move them to, oh, here it is, small to full-time positions. We've looked at this for a number of reasons, and we have a part-time treasurer and collector. She's really only spending about 14 hours a week in each position. And if you think about what she's doing and now the increased load that we're going to put on her for the project that we're doing, but not only that, annual audits that we're now having her do that were not done, well, there was a gap of about 10 years. We're really have increased the amount of work that we're asking the treasurer to do. We have now resolved a number of issues that we had from past audits, and the requirement and the best practice, and certainly what's in our new policies and procedures, is that the reconciliation with the accountant take place much more frequently than it's been taking place, both for the convenience of it and also for the safety of it. I mean, you should be balancing every month to 2 months instead of waiting 4 or 5 months. Our treasurer collector position is combined, so during the course of the time that she's open, while she's trying to work on rather complicated balancing, like imagine balancing your checkbook and having to get up every 5 or 10 minutes because there's somebody at the window. There's somebody who has a question. There's a phone call for your taxes. Those are the kinds of things that she expects to do and to take, but it's very difficult to get the amount of work done that she needs. This is a recommendation in our auditor's report that we simply need more time for our treasurer. It's the best practice for the reconciliations over the time that we're doing. I looked at various towns, and people were asking. The town, one of the towns on here has 2,866 people. They have a 40-hour a week treasurer making $89,000 a year. We're not proposing that, but that town is smaller than us and paying way more than we're paying. Right now, we only have 28 hours a week. And so even taking her to 40, we're not proposing to go to $89,000 a year. But this is a very difficult, here's another town, 1,734 people. They have a combined office between treasurer and assistant treasurer of $75,000 a year. to do two pieces there. So, you know, we're a little bit behind.
All right, so let's hold up here the, so it's a $23,815 increase. And it was recommended in the, by the auditor. This gives her more time to spend on the collector position, which is how we get revenue into the town.
Well, actually, mostly on the treasurer position, because that's really where she's been lacking.
Okay. But
I'm not having enough time.
That's the whole.
An assistant treasurer collector who will spend more time on the collector position.
Yeah. But I just want to emphasize the collector position because she's doing both. Yes. And really the long-term leadership comes from the treasurer part.
But she does the collector position for the wastewater as well.
Correct.
And you got to remember that this isn't just collection, it's issuing all the bills.
Right.
So there's a whole period of time with issuing bills. And although you get your tax bills at a certain time, you also get excise tax bills. So she's also issuing those. So all along the year, she's issuing taxes multiple times and collecting excise, property, sewer bills. All that has to be reconciled and go out. And then it all has to be collected to come in. And then all those accounts have to be reconciled. We also have made a big push on grants, and all of that is part of what she's reconciling. So every time we get a grant, that's another initiative that she has to, you know, that we have to keep track of. It's another thing we have to balance. Obviously the ARPA funds is something that we've still been working on balancing and paying for. And now we have the opioid funds, which we will discuss in the future. So her job has gotten immensely more complicated with a lot more to balance and deal with.
Okay.
Along with annual audits that we're undertaking.
All right. I think this is all pretty straightforward. Does anybody have a question or a problem with the treasurer collector going to full time?
No, not
okay.
at all.
And then you have the accountant at 17,000. Is that's for the audit?
That's for the audits. We've been paying those every year. I just rolled them out of a special article and into the budget. So there's really no change there. I just pointed it out because it will show up in the omnibus as a new article, as a new item, but it's been in your articles. You've been voting it as a separate article every year. And it just doesn't make sense if it's going to be an annual expense that we aren't putting it in the annual budget and voting it as an article every year, which means we have to set up a separate appropriation account for it every year. Under an article, we have to expend it. And then if it doesn't get finished, we have to vote to close it. It's really an annual expense.
All right, any questions on that one?
No.
Okay. Assistant treasurer collector, this is new, so let's talk about that.
Correct.
I'm sorry. Okay. All right, no questions. I did when I said that. No questions on the accountant piece of it. Okay. Assistant treasurer collector. Let's talk about that.
And this is a piece that we're recommending. We have to put it in our budget. However, we're expecting it to be fully or almost completely fully funded by the amount that's already being paid for from the water district. I'm sorry, the wastewater district, the sewer district already pays almost half of this amount of money. And then we'll have the water district, which our office will also be taking on. They have expressed interest in having our treasurer. They will be paying indirect costs for the cost of our treasurer. So that will actually help our treasurer budget. But we would like to have their collection be through this part-time position, which they will then also be assessed for. So although the 12,000 shows in our budget, we're anticipating this to be almost negligible to our budget. Both of those departments would be paying for this position. And this position then would be available to collect and issue bills for both of those two departments. And they will be billed accordingly for it.
Okay, so I would summarize this as 1, necessary, 2, it's essentially paid for by water and sewer.
But it gives us the added benefit of training somebody to cover that office when our person is out. So if there's an assistant treasurer, she will be trained to be able to back up and help our treasurer as well with payroll and with other things that need to be done if our treasurer is on vacation.
Taxes,
and those other things. Right.
Okay. Any questions on this one?
No.
Okay. Police, full-time officer.
So the police had two requests, a capital request, which they have withdrawn at this time. But the full-time officer position, this would be, I think, the idea that you'll see that the full-time position would cost more than the 42, but we're reducing the part-time budget by about $22,000. So it's an increase to the budget of 42, although that's not, the officer would be making more than that, but we're reducing the part-time hours. Because with the nature of the new policing laws, there's less and less part-timers that are actually going to be available and are actually going to stay as certified officers. There is no part-time certification any longer. You're either full-time certified or you're not. And if they're not full-time certified, then we can't hire them. So most people are choosing not to be a part-time officer going through full-time certification. And as time progresses, the few we have who have chosen that are going to slowly become less and less. There's no one moving into part-time policing. So it makes sense that we're looking at this ultimately being the replacement of part-time officers.
Gotcha. Questions?
Yes.
Jerry?
The RSO officer is here.
SRO?
Thank you. Thank you.
That's okay.
SRO officer. There will be a reduction of $22,000 in part-time officer budget for the position. Will this SRO officer be consistently on duty up at the school, or is this just a here and there he gets to go up?
So
Are they getting an officer?
This is an SRO.
This position may or may not be the SRO. This is the creation of a position. There are already people in the department that may choose to be the SRO if and when that position is negotiated and created with the school. So I put it in there because if an SRO does happen, that whether that's part-time or full-time, none of that's been decided, but we will again lose the current staffing one way or another into that SRO position. So this position is another way of keeping staffing levels consistent, especially since we're going to be having less and less part-time. I don't know that this position will be the SRO. That's not how we're presenting it.
I got it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Good question. And you understand part-time
Are
hours.
going down over time. So this is in preparation for the reduction in part-time policing.
Okay, yeah.
Which is, you can't be certified for any longer in Massachusetts in general.
Right.
Okay, any questions, comments, support, recommend? Yes?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
I mean, is everybody good with, okay. So you're going to speak up. No news is good news is the way I'm interpreting the silence. Okay. Tuition and transportation out of district, something we don't really.
We're actually going to exceed the budget this year. I transferred in, but so I'm upping it for next year. We always have a slight tuition increase, but mostly it's in the transportation. We still have a student who's attending Smith Vocational, and we have to pay the transportation cost for 180 days a year to transport that student.
One student.
And
One student?
One student.
$15,000?
No,
It's
it's
more than
$57,000. This is the increase of 15.
Oh my God.
We have to pay tuition to Smith Vocational, and we have to transport that student every day for 180 days. Because the tech school at the current time does not offer the agricultural program, it's the only program that that the tech school doesn't offer, and so therefore we transport this student to participate in that one program.
I don't want to take up a lot of time, but is this something that happens in a lot of rural towns? Okay, it's new to me.
Well,
someone wants to take the agricultural program at Smith, yes.
Don't worry about it.
It's, all I can say is the first 2 years I spent learning what goes on with financing, and then I spent this last year learning more about how the schools get financed, and that's a whole layer of complexity on top of that. So school choice is an eye-opener once you start going through that, and how much that costs.
Wow.
So it's not something we really have a lot of
We've
say
had
in.
this line item at 40,000 for a number of years, and it has just slowly crept up to the point where 40,000 won't cover it. So it's going to have to be 55,000.
Taxpayers' expense.
Mm-hmm.
Private education.
Public education at the taxpayer's expense, and transportation has been going up in general, so.
I don't have other schools in here, so I don't know if you want to stop now and talk about the effect of those, because we're at the school portion of the budget. So we have obviously we have the PVRS assessment and we have the tech assessment. So the Pioneer Valley assessment is actually down just over $100,000. We haven't received the formal letter, but the having attended the meetings, as several of our select board member and our finance committee have, and the numbers that they have presented, we are going down about 140,000 and change on the Pioneer Valley assessment.
Mm-hmm.
However, because the number of students for the Franklin County Tech School, which is based on enrollment, as well, has gone from 28 to 40, that assessment went up $200,000.
Huh.
So, be that as it may, that is where it is. I am then PVRS capital assessment of 30,525. That is the assessment for through PVRS for joint things in the Pioneer Valley capital assessment, not the Northfield Elementary School. Those come later, those articles. I am, however, as a result of this, recommending that you have an elementary school maintenance line item that you've been funding between 10 and 15,000 each year, because they put in for some additional work in the other articles. I'm actually recommending this year that you not fund that one line item. Doesn't have to be permanent, but this year, in anticipation of funding the two of their requests, I removed the funding from that one line item.
Is that in your memo?
Or you just,
It's not.
okay,
Okay, so do you want us
to weigh in on that right now, or is that coming up and as we go get?
Up to you at any point in the
is it
discussion.
an article number?
It is not. It's all in Article 5. This is the omnibus that we're discussing. If you
Oh.
look at the omnibus, and follow along the sections that we're going through, I kind of did them in order. We're in the education section.
That's right, it's broken down. I got it.
Yeah.
Right, and you'll see elementary maintenance with 50.
Yes.
And then you'll see the school budgets. Going down.
Got it. Very clear. I'm very clear on this.
Okay, so right now we're going through the highlights of Article 5, which is the omnibus budget. And I'm assuming there may be future discussion at the next meeting based on this discussion. So, okay, so highway.
Highway, you had several requests from the highway superintendent, or the finance committee did. They he's asking for an increase in bridges and rails, which is basically the public works. Many of his line items, if you look back over the last few years, have not increased. And you can be sure that the cost of those items have increased, and somewhat dramatically in the last couple years. So he's requesting an increase in the bridges and rails overall, the full budget of $35,700. This is just and then bridges and rails other, he did public works 35,700 and other of 14,500. Basically, because of the increased expenses that he's facing to continue road work, general, regular road work and projects.
Is this where under
These line items, this is where the fuel and the cost of asphalt and stuff like that falls?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
most of this is based on the increase in the expenses of all of those things.
Correct.
Okay.
Diesel fuel and anything related to diesel fuel
Yeah.
would be asphalt. I mean, that the cost of anything related to petroleum products has just been astronomical. Plus pipes, buying pipes and culverts, all of that has gotten way more expensive and and difficult to acquire at any price.
Okay, I have a question.
Yeah.
Not to be rude or speed this up in any manner, because
Yeah.
it's very important. But would it speed it up if we just read these, and then if we had questions for Andrea, we could address them? Like, could we just read the article out loud and
Sure.
and just go through them that way?
I read all these over the past few days, so any questions that I have will come up if they do come up. So
I think we can just keep chunking.
About the article or the memo?
No, I was just thinking that if we just, like, if I just read the article, Snow and Ice, out loud, and then if there was any questions, we could refer to her.
Yeah, I think I don't think we have to read it out loud. I take your point, though.
Right, you got my point.
What?
Which is the pace is going to take all.
Pretty clear, Snow and Ice, he wants 25,000 to increase for salt.
Okay.
We can move through them. Machinery maintenance. He's asking for $9,000 for gasoline and parts.
Andrea,
Yep.
hang on 1 second.
Yep.
So the nature, this is a slog. That's how budgets work.
No, I understand, but
okay. So right now we're on Article 5, which is the budget, and we're going through the highlights.
Yeah.
So as you look at the highlights, I don't think we necessarily need to discuss each one in depth. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So reading it, discussing it is the same amount of time as the way I'm looking at it.
Okay.
So Snow and Ice, and that's why I'm kind of asking the questions too, because Snow and Ice, that's gone up. That's just the way it is. So, and that's reflected here. And that's the duty of the highway superintendent, is to report to the FinCom and to us that whatever transpired in the last few years as far as his budget needs to change. So I'm not thinking we need to discuss Snow and Ice, the 25,000 with regards to salt. That's just the nature of his expenses. Correct me if I'm wrong. Machine maintenance, the same thing. We're talking about increases in gasoline, diesel, and parts. So we're looking at a total of $9,000 to reflect all of those costs that have gone up. And most of his budget has been level for several years. So I know it pains Tom to even have to ask for this. Mosquito control, access, the Board of Health, we have the 5,000.
Right, you did authorize it in a special town meeting last year, so this isn't really a new line item. It just needs to move into the budget. It will be in the Board of Health budget.
Okay, so, yeah. Okay.
So again, we need to take a look at what was in an article and now it's part of the regular budget. Recreation, I think we've...
Well, this is a change. I don't know that it was presented to you. There's a request here to put the program director on actual wages for 19 hours a week based on the amount of programming that she's running. And if you've been in town, you would notice the programming is increased astronomically. She is running that. Wages to cover the positions, various attendant positions, tending and supervising these programs like the weight room, the pickleball, all these various new programs. There's somebody who actually goes and opens the gym and closes the gym, make sure that everything's in place. Volunteer, they call it volunteer, but you do a stipend for referees, basketball, softball, other team sports that they're participating in, including end of year pizza, ice cream, and trophies. And then purchase services, porta potties, and then $2,500 for the software that the rec is now using to track all the sign up and payments for these programs.
Okay. This made sense to me.
That in on the presentation that she did to the FinCom. So
yeah, me too.
Okay, so continue asking questions as we go.
She has pages and pages of the programming that they're doing.
Okay. Okay, so we're just about through Article 5, which is the whole budget. So is there anything else from the budget? We can zoom through the rest of the articles. This is the worst of the slog. So we can zoom through the rest of the articles. Is it the pleasure of the board to actually discuss the budget more at length at the next meeting? The Article 5, anything else in Article 5 that...
If it comes up and...
Well, as long as we put the article for the select board stipends in there, make its own article. Separate article.
That's a separate article.
Yeah.
So actually, because none of this information is going to actually be in the warrant, correct? Like all these different snow and ice machine maintenance, are these?
No, the omnibus is just presented by the list that you see. You have the draft warrant in front of you. You see that. obviously, they can open the article and then if questions are asked, we would speak to them. I just wanted you to have the opportunity to see where the big numbers were.
Right.
So these are the highlights of the major changes in the omnibus.
Right, I didn't do anything with salaries, obviously, but I looked for things that were 3 or 4, big changes in budgets that would be noticeable,
Okay,
so we could explain them.
okay. And then there's retirement and insurance, health
Insurance.
insurance.
Okay. Do you want to discuss more at the next meeting on any of the other line items?
I don't think so.
Okay, then let's run through the rest of the articles then.
Sounds good.
You're gonna wait to take a vote on that.
Yes. Yep. I just want to make sure we can do it tonight if folks want, but if there's anything else they want to discuss or invite questions on, et cetera, watch some old FinCom meetings, for example. Article 6 is the emergency services operating budget. This will be covered by the ambulance enterprise fund.
So you have it in draft form, you can see that that's their proposed budget, all paid for out of the enterprise fund.
Right, so that's how enterprise funds. Shall we vote to recommend the
Emergency services operating budget.
Sure.
So moved?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Stay with it. Come on. We're almost there.
Sure.
Dinner awaits.
I know, I'm like, sure, why not?
Dinner awaits.
Sorry.
Okay.
I meant to say so moved.
Thank you.
You're
okay.
welcome.
Emergency services capital request. 15,000 to. Go ahead.
This would also be out of their enterprise fund, and this is because, as you just, this ties to what you just did tonight. They're getting their new ambulance sometime this summer. It looks like it will be June. They're going to put some equipment. They're not making it a full ALS, but they're going to put some equipment back into the van, and the van will be in Irving. That's the proposed plan. So there would be a basic life support vehicle as part of Northfield EMS, and that's why you're appointing Northfield EMS EMTs in Irving, so that they would be stationed there, an emergency vehicle to respond, but at BLS level, not ALS.
Makes sense.
Yep.
So, and just for those who are watching at home, the new ambulance was covered
By the emergency services. The town hasn't paid.
Enterprise fund, yeah.
Right, the enterprise fund.
Taxes.
Yep. Okay, it's not coming from taxes. Okay, all those.
Yep.
Do you have a motion,
Yeah,
please,
I have a
on
motion there.
recommending Article 7?
So moved.
Yep.
Thank you. Second by Heath. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Article 8 is the sewer operating budget. This will be covered by the sewer enterprise fund.
I move to approve Article 8.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Can we reiterate what an enterprise fund is? That folks pay their sewer bills and that money goes into the enterprise fund.
Correct. It's
Right.
not connected to the town's tax base.
Right, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Then there's a sewer, Article 9, sewer capital request. And by the way, we're recommending to put this in front of the town on the town warrant. We're not approving this. We're recommending that it be considered by the town. Okay, Article 9, sewer capital request, $150,000 to replace a water line to the sewer plant. This will be covered by the sewer enterprise fund. Do I have a motion to
Motion to
recommend?
approve Article 9.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Article 10, revolve.
Can I just make one clarification of what you said? Generally, this is a vote to recommend this, that the town meeting pass it, not just to put it on the warrant.
Okay,
Well,
good point.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see,
Selectboard recommends this article.
yes. Article 9, Article 8. Okay, we voted on Article 8. Article 9,
I move that we approve Article 9, sewer capital request, $150,000 to replace a water line in the sewer plant. This will be covered by the Sewer Enterprise Fund.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Article 10, revolving funds.
I move that we approve Article 10.
Second.
Do you know what revolving funds are?
Do you want to describe that, Andrea? Revolving funds?
The Article 10 is these are all already established, and they are basically paid by user fees, activity fees, whatever, and they go into an account, which is then used, and it tells you the use of the funds to pay for either the activities, in one case the senior meals, to pay the plumbing, gas inspector, wire inspector. We don't put them on staff. They get, the fee goes in, the fee goes out to them. And then you have the source of it, and then the limit that can go in and out per year.
Which is needed from an
You have to do this under statute, yeah.
Okay, can I get a motion to?
I make a motion
Thank
to
you.
support Article 10 revolving funds.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Article 11, snow and ice deficit, 100,000 question mark.
Yeah, I'm still awaiting a final number from Tom, so you can wait on this, or you can vote up to 100,000. I mean, the finance committee is going to support it. He told me it wasn't going to be over 100, but I do have to get the final number from him, which I'm hoping we'll be getting. I know I'll be getting before you have to sign the warrant, but but at the very least, I'm putting. He said it wouldn't be over that, so that's what I'm budgeting for the warrant purposes right now, to make sure there's enough in the.
Okay, so the only direction it's going to go in is lower.
Potentially.
I hope so, yes.
Okay. What's the pleasure of the board? Do you want to wait and tackle it on April 4th, or tackle it now?
Well, we're tackling, are we putting a lot of things onto our meeting for April 4th, or?
Mostly the big, which we already spent a lot of time on, which is Article 5.
Right.
Yeah. Motion.
Tackle it now.
Motion to recommend Article 11.
Yep. Second.
Now, does this mean, I mean, there's different options on how to take it. Do we have to decide on an option? If you read further,
I'm recommending getting paid from free cash.
so the third option, yeah, on here, yeah.
So is the recommendation not just the amount, but also how it's funded?
Yeah.
That's up to you. I mean, I think the way that the budget's put together, you know, I mean, you don't want, I don't think you want to put it on the tax rate. You can. You can put it on the tax rate, you can pay from available funding, or you can try to scrape it together from other sources at the end of the year, but that's a high amount to do that with.
Okay, so we are entertaining a motion
to support it, because we don't want it on the tax rate.
That's right.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Article 12 is for 350th expenses. Motion to
approve Article 12.
motion MA.
Second.
All those in favor? Any discussion on the motion, first of all? Questions? This is relatively straightforward. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Article 13, assessors legal expenses of 25,000.
Yep.
Motion, can I get a motion to recommend Article 13?
So moved.
This is kind of a necessary beast.
Yeah.
A second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor? First of all, any discussion? I'm just looking. No. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Highway truck, Article 14 for 60,000. We're looking at recommending funding for this request from free cash again. What did Finance Committee end up doing on this, on the highway?
Yes.
They voted to recommend?
You're talking on the highway truck?
The Article 14.
Yes, they voted 60,000 free cash recommendation for the highway truck.
Okay, and that leaves him to fund the trailer request from Chapter 90 funds, but not the truck.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. That's what he said, if you're going to fund one, that he would please do the highway truck, because he could potentially use his Chapter 90 for the trailer, but not for the truck.
Got, so he has no other source.
if he chooses it.
And he needs to replace a truck. Okay. Vote to recommend?
Motion to recommend?
I
Motion to recommend.
motion to recommend.
Motion to recommend Article 14.
Thank you.
Second.
Second. I know this is difficult, guys, but
Well, I
give me-
remember doing this last year.
I know, but
I
give me,
do, I
give me the
remember-
motions in the
It's all
second.
coming
so we
back
can,
to me
okay.
now.
All right, good. It's like riding a bicycle. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor, Article 14 to recommend for the highway truck of 60,000.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Yeah.
Okay.
Next
Artic-
year we're gonna order pizza.
Okay. Article 15, Northfield Elementary School key card access system for 25,000. I would recommend funding this request from free cash. The district requested 3 capital items for the elementary school. Quotes from vendors were submitted for both this one and the one for window coverings. Both are recommended safety improvements. So 15 and 16 are safety issues for the elementary school. Can I get a motion to?
These are also the capital requests that you voted in the omnibus for PVRS is also doing this at the high school level.
Right. But because the town owns
Elementary school, these are called out separately, just as Bernardston is doing its elementary school. Okay.
Yeah.
Motion to approve Article 15.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Same thing for Article 16, similar. Shades and window covering for safety purposes of 15,000. We're recommending funding this request from free cash.
So moved, Article 16.
Thank you. Excellent. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Article 17, fire chief retirement is non-monetary. So we're going to come back to that.
With a special language for him.
Yes, I think you're gonna wanna take a vote on it eventually.
Yeah, that, we need some discussion on that.
Doesn't usually, but you guys need to have a discussion on it.
Yep. Okay, so that's April 4th. Okay, Article 18 is Retirement Trust Fund, OPEB, 75,000. This is the annual contribution toward the retiree health insurance account. Funding this annually is continuing to make sure that future obligations for these benefits are met and not pushing them off onto future residents or taxpayers. Can I get a motion to recommend Article 18?
Motion to recommend Article 18.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Article 19, the town needs to create a stabilization account. This is per the Department of Revenue to place the funding that the town has received and will continue to receive as part of at least 5 separate opioid settlements. So they're coming in from all different sources, both federal and state. The town has received just over 4,000 so far, but will be continuing to receive funds for the next 25 years. Not huge numbers, but we need to have a specific stabilization fund. Can I get a motion to recommend Article 19?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on that? That's kind of a necessary thing in order to get the funds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. What is Article 20, the Council on Aging bylaw? Do we need to recommend that?
Well, I mean, I would, usually you guys recommend more than just monetary, but it's up to you if you choose to recommend it. The Council on Aging does not seem to be able to locate a current bylaw. They're not sure one has ever been passed. So they have written one.
Oh,
So there is a bylaw that will be on file with the town clerk. It's pretty much modeled on the state, standard bylaw, but it talks about their officers and, operations and as the Council on Aging.
I don't attend their meetings.
Did you guys want to look at the language for that? Okay, April 4th. All right, Article 21, the floodplain overlay district bylaw update, also non-monetary. What is this one, Andrea? I'm not familiar with this one.
The town currently has a floodplain bylaw. FEMA is redrawing maps and redoing floodplains and took one look at it and said, nope, update it. So the planning board worked with the FERCog, with Peggy Sloan, to update it to the satisfaction of FEMA to be in compliance with federal law. And so it will be on the town meeting, again, available at the town clerk's office. after they have their hearing on it, which I have to remind Steve to go ahead and schedule their public hearing because it has to be within so many weeks of the vote.
Okay, and this is necessary, I forgot about the FEMA.
View. This is necessary for FEMA funds, correct?
Yes, if you don't end up with a one that's compliant, people who actually, it's not only FEMA funding, but people who actually have floodplain insurance through FEMA could be in risk, in jeopardy of not being able to be compliant with that program.
And then that can I get a motion to recommend?
Article 21 then.
Motion to recommend Article 21.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Okay, Mary, got the second. Great, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Article 22, Community Preservation Committee bylaw update.
Basically, I think they mentioned this to you in one of their meetings. Basically, this was adopted years ago, and it was adopted in the standard state language, which referenced a housing authority. You don't have a housing authority, so you've been essentially using your council on aging to send a representative. We're just cleaning that up so that it's officially correct.
Oh, that's the membership issue. Okay.
Yes, that's all this is.
Okay.
We're correcting something that was asking for a housing representative, and we don't have one. Okay, can I get a motion to recommend Article 22?
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Article 23, CPC Annual Funds Article. This always comes up. This is basically allowing them to present their process and what they're recommending to the town. So I would recommend that we recommend this. Article 23.
Housekeeping one where they're
Yep.
their accounting into each individual, their annual amount into each individual sub-account.
Correct, and then all the
Will be available when they vote, right?
Yeah.
When the town members vote. Okay, Article 23, motion to recommend?
So moved.
Great, second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, great.
Aye.
Thank you, Mary. Article 24, CPC funding. This came up, senior
talked
center
about this,
storage. We already talked about it. It's $2,825. Do you want to make a motion to recommend this?
Motion to
This is-
recommend Article 24 regarding the senior center storage shed.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. CPC funding, I'm familiar with this one. Historic outdoor fireplace of $3,000 to fund the project to repair.
Article 25 is the library sign. I somehow left it off my memo. 26 will be the fireplace.
Oh,
It's in the warrant. It's just missing on my memo.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
No, you didn't see it. It's not you. So yeah, so it's basically $2,000 to replace the signage at the Northfield Farms Field Library building out of their historical preservation funding.
It's CPC.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Oh.
To recommend Article 25 then, the CPC funding for the library sign.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Article 26, CPC funding. That's the fireplace. I'm familiar with that because they ran it by the Historical Commission. Outdoor fireplace. This is a repair and restoration. And this
It already exists?
It does, and it's part of where the housing is, and the housing replaced the youth hostel, and there was also a big old house there where the Spirit of the Renaissance, there's all kinds of, from the different decades, it's a historical location, and this fireplace was used over 100 years. So they're recommending, the Historical Commission recommended that it be restored, and this actually was a really not inexpensive, but was a very reasonable quote to do it.
So who's going to see this?
Who's going to see it?
Yeah.
You can see it on that property.
Oh, you can?
Yeah, it's out, yeah.
It's an outdoor.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Oh,
outdoor
sorry,
fireplace.
it's an outdoor, yeah, yep,
Okay.
yep. Historic outdoor fireplace.
I've never seen it.
At 88 Main Street. Yeah, I can send you the info on the history.
Please.
Okay, Article 26. What's
mean,
going on over there? I need a
You
motion
mean
to.
Article 27?
No,
Oh,
26.
Still on 26.
We did Article
Motion
20.
to approve
Thank
Article
you.
26.
Okay.
Thank you, Heath.
Second.
Okay, Alex got the second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Article 27, resolution.
Right, so I don't even know if you bothered to recommend that, I think you move it at town meeting. We'll have the names in there, Sandra puts that list together of all the people who've served on boards and committees and various things, and we insert that into the warrant, so that will be coming.
And we're gonna see
Detail on that. Okay, and then any other articles here that we need to chat about tonight?
No, I just wanted to let you know that the police cruiser and the highway trailer you already discussed. There was an NES article for doors. It was one of the 3 capital requests. They did not submit the backup documentation, so I did not recommend it. It doesn't mean you guys don't have to, but the finance committee did not recommend it at that time. We are working on the bathroom project as well, so it's not like we're not doing some capital work at NES because we have a $260,000 bathroom renovation project coming along as well. The other thing you might note is that I did not recommend that you put any money in the general stabilization account this year. And the reason that is that if you look at our policies and procedures and standard operating practice and good practice in the state, it's recommended to keep about 5% of your general operating budget in a stabilization account. That's your backup emergency if something were to fall apart in terms of funding. Your actual operating budget, if you look at without the articles, your actual operating budget is would be prospectively, since what you voted to approve, about 9.4 million this year. If that passes, 5% is about 470,000, and you currently have $538,835 in your town general stabilization account. So it makes a whole lot of sense that you're fine and that you don't need to necessarily appropriate any more money into that account.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Any questions?
And
on
I also
that?
just wanted to point out that if you add up your revenue sources coming into your budget, if you look at the master budget spreadsheet, which I don't know if I sent you, I think I did. This year's budget for going onto the tax rate actually is a decrease of about $230,960 over last year's.
Say that again.
Repeat that.
So we have a budget, then we have all your revenue sources. You're paying free cash, you get unrestricted general government aid, some of it is CPC funding, all of that factored in. Then you go down, the balance has to be raised and appropriated on the tax rate. So everything else has to be raised on the tax rate. Over last year's budget, you're actually decreasing your tax rate request this year. The budget's going down for funding on the tax rate, over $200.
I thought that was worth repeating. Thank you.
We'll bring it up at town meeting.
Okay. All right. Sounds responsible to
Very
me.
good.
Guys, we went through a lot tonight. I'm sure more questions will come up. So as you look through things, plus you wanted to do the stipend article as well, can you funnel questions and comments to Andrea so that I can help structure the discussion for April 4th? So I appreciate everybody kind of slogging it through here.
That's a good idea.
But if I get suggestions of what is jumping out from the budget, then I can kind of gauge how much time we need and how to direct the conversation. Otherwise, I'm kind of free-forming it here, and it's not really that comfortable or that enjoyable, to be honest with you. So anyway, but we did it. Okay. We don't know until we do it. It's a learning experience every time.
Yes.
Okay, topics not reasonably anticipated by the chair 48 hours in advance of the meeting. I don't have any. Citizens' concerns. Sarah?
I have a couple questions.
Yep. Can you just state for the record again? Oops. For those I said, can you just state your name and address for the record again?
Sarah Kearns, 39 Highlands.
Oh, we did this.
So I did have one note on the CONSCOM finding. I just wanted to clarify that the CONSCOM did not speak to the e-services project. It was just approving the wetlands delineations done by the experts. Okay,
Yep.
so
I think we heard that. Yeah, go ahead.
So Andre said that this is the first large capital expenditure that's happened in recent history, so it's really awesome to get information and discuss how it works. My questions are less about the specifics of the emergency service building, which I think that they've been really transparent and are working hard to tell people about, and more about the voting timeline.
About the what?
The voting timeline.
Okay.
Sorry. I can take this off.
Thanks.
So by law, the specific information for the regular town meeting must be out on April 17th. And that's 2 days before the not yet finalized April 19th special meeting. When's the April 19th special meeting going to be finalized?
You have to sign it on April 4th.
Okay.
We still have to follow the same notices regardless if it's special or annual.
Actually, this annual town meeting requires 1 week posting. Special requires 2. However, we usually post the town meeting ballot, or I'm sorry, the town meeting election warrant with it. So we generally post it 2 weeks. Technically an annual, because it's in your bylaws, only has to be posted for 1 week, but we do 2.
I was just taking the 17th from my notes. That Andrea said. So I went to the finance meeting last night and they did an awesome thorough job, but they didn't have a citizen question period, so I have these questions. The big expenditures mentioned elsewhere have been an increase in school costs based on the town, and you guys talked about that, based on the town leaving the district. The consent order, and those numbers are huge for the sewer, and those run from $27 to $41 million, and that's taken from the Prickett Report 2019 estimates. And then the water district repairs, which are cited as like $7 million. So my question is, I saw that it says that the tax rate is going down on this budget, but we know those expenses are coming. How are we going to pay for them? So are we taking a long-term loan? Is a loan going to be required?
Yeah, hang on one second though. I just need to ask a procedural question. Sorry to interrupt. So we've talked about the budget and the tax rate. We didn't have water district or anything related to water on the agenda. So is there an answer that you can provide, or do we need to put this on April 4th?
I think my response would be that the water district is a separate legal entity that the town select board has absolutely no authority with and or over, and none of their expenditures go on the tax rate. I would suggest that you go to one of their meetings. They're posted on their website. The Grandin Water District is what you're talking about. They have a website. They post their meetings, and they are a separate legal entity just like the town. So
they're responsible for the repairs.
No, the people in the water district have their own funding. This has nothing to do with the rest of the town. It's a separate legal entity. Just like the Northfield Water District. None of that comes before the town or the select board.
Okay, and the order on the sewer, the Prickett report, this is $27 to $40 million.
Yeah, the sewer district is an enterprise fund. It is funded by the users. So that, again, I would recommend you go to the sewer commission and talk to them about what their plans are. There's a lot of grants for sewer and water, so I'm not sure what they're planning, but as far as $27 to
$41 million, that's just what I was asking for. So I guess my point is
Sarah,
that we're about to take out a loan for
Can you just back up and repeat the question that you had so that it's clear for folks at home?
And maybe slow down just a bit.
Yeah.
You're spewing out a lot of numbers really quick.
Sorry.
It's okay. I know
it's the end of a long day and I caffeinated.
Same here for us as well.
So
you have a question about sewer, which...
Well, no, so here's my question. Let me clarify it.
Yeah, thanks.
We're about to be taking out a long-term loan, 30 years, if the safety building is approved. If we say that we want it. Does the town have a credit limit? And do we have, Andrea said there haven't been any big capital purchases recently. So are we taking, the question that I've been hearing over and over again is worry about taking on a big expense when there are other potential big expenses sticking out there. And so that's the question I'm asking, because that's what I've been hearing over and over again, and that's the question.
If I restate, so are you worried that sewer and water has an effect on the budget and the tax rate?
Well, So the
When we're-
information, we have the consent order is a governmental thing, right? And they're saying, and that we're under a consent order that we have to fix the sewer. And that's a big number.
Yeah.
And so the question is, how are we going to do that? And if we have, so I don't pretend to know governmental economics, but I do know home economics because I've been a homemaker for most of my life.
Uh-huh.
And I've run my budgets, and I have to, even if you're going to spend on credit, you have to make sure that you can pay the credit. And so my question is, are we foreclosing options on infrastructure by taking out a big loan for the safety building? That's my question.
Again, so the board doesn't get themselves in trouble here. I feel I must answer Sarah. This is not a question appropriate for the select board. They do not fund nor approve projects for the sewer district. That is an appropriate question for the sewer commissioners, because how they fund it through their operating and debt will be on the enterprise fund. It has no bearing on the select board or the projects moving forward with them. I would talk to them. There's a lot of financing and funding mechanisms for water and sewer, way more than there are for general town budgets.
Right.
There's millions and millions of dollars right now in grants and special loans for those projects. That should be something they should be planning on. The select board is in no way prepared, nor should they be, to answer that question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I do want to respond in one way to that, though, that
Well, we can't be careful about what we're discussing. That's the
Because
only
I
thing.
could respond to that too, but if it's not on the agenda, we can't really discuss it.
Well, the budget's on the agenda, and that's what I'm asking.
yeah, and so is the emergency services committee. So
This isn't a town budget item. I mean, not that kind of borrowing and the enterprise fund rates. I would take it up.
Because I went to the finance
Listen.
committee, but they didn't have a
All right.
question time.
Okay.
So I'm not trying to impose. That was just, this is the place that I knew to come to ask questions.
Yes, I know. And as the chair,
Uh-huh.
I'm directing the conversation for the entire group here. We are not answering questions on sewer or water. Understand the concern, so we take that seriously as citizens ourselves. If there's a question about the emergency services, all of those dollars are coming together as we described earlier, and they will be addressed as part of the special town meeting and any other public information sessions, including public select board, finance, and emergency services committee meetings, right? So,
So you mean all the costs are coming together, we'll know what it costs, not all
Correct.
the dollars are coming, okay.
correct,
Got it.
yep. That's what we talked about earlier. And I think that's what I was reading as the general concern is it's gonna be a lot of money and we don't know, and it's like, there's a good reason why you don't know every detail yet, is because all of those
They're still
costs
gathering.
are coming in and they're going to be presented. So if we try and jump the gun and answer questions for which we're not really
Yep. No, I get
equipped,
it.
because the bids have not come in yet. Bernie,
Just to mention that
I
the
just wanna be
town
careful.
does own the treatment plant. That isn't owned by the enterprise fund. The town owns the treatment plant. That we insure it, we vote the commissioners in
Yeah.
and that, so I mean, that's just a fact. We're not gonna discuss it,
Well,
but there's,
those are indirect costs that are the insurance and all those things are funded back to the enterprise fund. They are charged back to.
Yeah.
So it is paid for by the users.
yeah, ultimately it's paid for by the user. Okay. Anything else, Sarah?
Yeah. How much does a special town meeting cost?
What?
A
Then
special-
I heard someone told me there was $10,000 to $12,000 for the second special town meeting, and that seemed like a high number.
That was a high number, and I saw that it was posted. Yeah.
But I would imagine 1,000 would be stretching it.
Really?
Where'd that number come from?
Yeah, because isn't it just,
the reason why I'm not on next door anymore.
no kidding, no kidding, you guys are killing us.
Toxicity.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
The cost would go up, but not a special town meeting.
I see. So after the one that you said if we moved the meeting till after.
Right, and that's why I brought up the timing was because special town elections are more labor and time and cost intensive than special town meetings. Special town meetings are like having a large select board meeting.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I
So
thought.
that's where the
this was-
cost comes from, right?
I'll definitely correct.
Yeah, so I would definitely reach out and ask prior to
I mean, it's
sharing
hard
costs
to,
like that.
I hear you, but when you say reach out and ask, it's not always easy to get an answer. But
Yes,
that
it
was
is.
definitely, I disagree, but that was definitely a mistake, and I'll make sure to fix it.
Thank
What
you.
would a
Reaching out and asking is always available.
Always.
excellent?
Always available.
So-
and people mostly know in terms of, usually I get emails. I didn't get any emails. So, and I can
Go
always
ahead,
direct
go
it.
ahead, Sarah.
If somebody feels they're not getting the answers they need, whether that be town hall or town hall staff, please reach out to me. I will always get you an answer.
Always.
Okay. Yeah. So in the last,
And then if there is a problem, we'll address it as a select board for sure. Okay, we have one more.
so the I wanted to clarify that the questions and concerns I've been hearing have not been about whether or not the whether or not we need an emergency service building, whether or not we support.
Yeah.
It's been about the timing, concern about the timing and the heavy spending, and then it's been about, folks don't want to cut down the trees, the location. So is the approval to borrow, which is the second thing on the special warrant, is that an approval of the building itself? Does the borrowing begin immediately? Like once they have approval to borrow, does that borrow begin immediately, or does the town, at that second town meeting, is there some kind of check mark or something? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Sarah, I'm happy to meet with you and walk you through this process. I think
you can just answer that question. I think it's my last one.
Short-term borrowing for a year, but yes, it is an approval at the special. There is no second question on the annual town meeting.
Because remember when she said
Mary, okay, is that, shall we walk through
No, that's good. That's
Okay.
the information that I needed, but he said something he wanted to say about the...
No, we're actually going to move on to the next order of business. And I take the points that you raised and we'll make sure to reiterate the schedule at the next meeting as well.
It wasn't that people didn't understand the schedule, it was people that were worried about the schedule. So, but thank you for answering
What do you mean
the
they're
questions.
What are you worried about with respect to the schedule? You're the citizen.
The big numbers are scary, and when you're frankly not even of the e-services building, right? We understand that that's a big thing. It's the question of if there are even bigger numbers sitting in the wings, and then we don't have the money to fix our water and our sewer. That to me is what's concerning. But you've said that you can't comment on that, so I understand that. But we have this big. It's like, I wanna buy a couch, but instead I've got to fix the basement, and so I have to put off buying the couch or something. I don't know, but that's the idea. I'm not it's not about whether the emergency service building is good or needed or anything like that. It's about, can we afford it?
Okay.
And are we going to have the money?
So
that's the problem. You know what I mean?
That's
Yes.
what the special town meeting's for.
So to clarify, because I'm clarifying for all of us so that if we need to address something differently at a future meeting, we can do that. So the timing that you're talking about is the timing of all expenditures or possible expenditures that would affect some or all of the people of Northfield. That's the worry.
Yes.
And the timing, as I was interpreting it, was the schedule leading up to the information to present to the voters. So we're talking on two parallel tracks, sounds like.
But also that, so that we would have the information. But Andrea answered that already. We're going to have it by the 17th, and then we have to vote at the
You are
special
never
meeting.
not going to have any information from the town.
Right.
You're never not. You just need to sit tight and trust in the select board.
It's late.
The question was whether we would have the contextual information.
You're
and
always
that
a
question
will.
was
Okay.
answered.
Let's wait. It's late.
Mm-hmm.
We take the points and the questions. The concern is making sure that we all represent the information accurately. And we're looking for ways to distribute the information. And we're looking for ways to engage with people. So there's, as I said earlier, there's multiple meetings, plus a public meeting, plus a coffee hour with the senior center. And we will take what you've put before us tonight, we'll take that into consideration. But we actually don't have control, as stated, we don't have control over all aspects of the town. So sometimes people need to go to different meetings to present those concerns as well.
And I would just like to
Anyway.
offer, please contact my office about setting up a meeting. I am a nexus on all three of those topics. I follow them all. I interact with all of those,
Funding.
including the water district at great length. So I'm happy to meet with you to talk about everything I know. I'm not professing to know it all or take the place of the commissioners, but I'm happy to meet with you to discuss, which might help with some of the questions I heard you raising tonight.
Yeah, I think so. Especially grant funding. That's a huge topic. We do appreciate your input, and we thank you. We just have one more thing to do for tonight.
Thanks, Sarah.
We'll take all of this into the next meeting as well. Okay, so we unfortunately have a resignation from Judy Tate from the Council on Aging.
Aw.
We thank Judy. She said, please accept this letter. She's enjoyed being on the board, but she feels that her time is up and she needs to encourage somebody else to be on the board. So can I get a motion to accept with regret the resignation from Judy Tate from the Council on Aging?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. And then proposed agenda, we've kind of got things already teed up for April 4th. You have the list. Suggestions on how to structure and what else you want addressed as part of the overall budget discussion. Please send those to Andrea so we can help structure this and kind of manage the time a little bit better.
Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate everybody's patience on that. Anything else under proposed agenda topics? You have the list. Everybody has the list.
Not until after we get through the town. Something.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it later.
Yeah.
I wrote some notes down, but we have too much going on right now.
Well, you feel free to send it in, and we'll just add it to the list so that if it's
down,
not
yeah.
April 4th, then it'll be after April 4th. Yeah.
Well, probably after the election.
Oh, okay. All right. Any shout outs, recognition for service? I didn't see any announcements. No? Okay.
I'd like to thank the finance committee. They've done an awful lot of work and they have still more work ahead of them. So
I'll second that.
Great job.
Yep, the finance committee.
every week, and it's a new committee sort of, and they're missing a person. And so it's been a new year.
And the warrants, please.
Also, if I may, I'd like to shout out to that recreation director. Her name escapes me right now.
Stacy Bond? Recreation?
No, who just,
Stacy Bond is the rec director and also the 350th. So a shout out.
always a shout out to Stacy Bond. Great. Definitely. Thank you.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, don't forget to sign the warrants, please.
So
Here.
Regarding that stipend note I gave you, so Sandra, the minutes from that meeting where we discussed it are not listed on the website. So a couple of our meetings aren't updated yet. Minutes. So